Good evening. Welcome to our board meeting, February 20th. I call this meeting to order. Dr. Otha Belcher, Area Superintendent, Area 1.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Unfortunately, my little person is sick. He fell sick today. He had to be excused from school, so I will be the pledge. So would everyone stand and salute? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated.
Thank you, Dr. Belcher. Please let me introduce this evening Pastor Walter Young, Jr., who will deliver our moment of inspiration this evening. Pastor Young began his ministerial walk as a certified lay speaker in the United Methodist Church. He continued his spiritual undertaking by being selected deacon at Word and Worship Church in Jackson, Mississippi. Thus, he and a handful of people started Open Arm Worship Center, located at 5727 County Court Road in Jackson. Pastor Young is a graduate of Northwestern State University and a product of the Natchitoches Parish, Louisiana public school system. He is employed as a senior commercial claims adjuster with EMC Insurance Company. He is also a lifetime member of Omega Psi Phi fraternity. His greatest accomplishments are allowing God to use him to help others, being a husband to Valerie Gale Young, and being a father to Evan Lynn Young. Please welcome Pastor Walter Young, Jr.
Thank you. To the Board of Trustees, Superintendent Dr. Murray, to the teachers, parents, students of the Jackson Public School District, and the community. This evening I was asked to share some words of encouragement to the body. I first like to take this time to thank the leadership team. This is an honor and a privilege to be here. Now, let's get down to business. If it's okay with you, I would like to give you a word to encourage you individually and collectively as a community. And that word is cooperation. Will you say cooperation?
Cooperation.
Will you say cooperation?
Cooperation.
Thank you for your cooperation. I like this definition of the word cooperation. The process of working together to the same end. Can I say that one more time? The process of working together to the same end. There are so many synonyms for the word cooperation. So with that, I encourage you, each one of you, to collaborate with each other to make Jackson Public School District the best in its class. I encourage the parents and students to support the superintendent and teachers so that Jackson Public School can move forward in its mission to educate children, therefore affecting change in the community. I encourage the Board of Trustees to compromise with the administrative team to map out a plan for a successful school district so that we can surpass what the naysayers are saying about us. Each one of us have a place in the Jackson Public School District team. You're a member. You each all have a place. I encourage you to find that voice, assist each other to reach the same end. In other words, I need your cooperation. Will you say cooperation?
Cooperation.
Thank you for your cooperation.
Thank you.
Hold on one
Pastor
second.
Young,
sir.
we'd
Hold
like
on.
to give you a token of our appreciation by Dr. Sivak.
I'm sorry.
No, well, and the photo, get your photo. Oh, I'm sorry. That's the wrong bag.
Is that the wrong bag?
No, that's the right one. It has no problem.
Which one?
I say the one with the umbrella.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Young. I let the record show that we have a quorum established. All 6 members of our serving board members are here. And before I hear a motion to adopt the agenda, I'd just like to say that these are our business meetings, but the board would really like to thank the community, our children, our parents, our teachers, our staff, all across the district who have been working so hard and coming together to try to move our district forward. And we've received a lot of support from across the community, lots of feedback regarding challenges and places we need to think more clearly about, things, ideas. But we do want everyone to know that we appreciate everyone's feedback. We may not answer every email or return every call, but we are a team. We're working together to help all of our children across this district, and we pledge that to you as we did when we joined this board. So I just wanted to take a moment. It's been a rough last couple of years. Topped it all off with ice storms and broken pipes and 7 days out of school. But all of our children and parents and community have rallied together to say we are Jackson JPS strong, and we're going to serve our children and our teachers well. So I just wanted to say that because we tend to rush to our business, and I wanted to bring those type of words of encouragement to all of us as we do this work together. Do I hear a motion to adopt the agenda as distributed earlier?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second to adopt the agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, we have adopted the agenda as distributed earlier. The minutes have been presented for reading and approval. Ms. Williams distributed them early. Do I hear comments or corrections to the minutes of our February 6th board meeting? Dr. Sivak.
I would like to suggest one change to the minutes. I believe that there was a motion to approve the MOA with 100 Black Men of Jackson that included a provision to require an annual report on the partnership. And so I would just, I guess, make a motion to amend the minutes to reflect that action taken by the board.
Thank you. I do remember that.
Second.
Any other corrections or additions to the minutes? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve the minutes as distributed and with the addition of the correction of the record? Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, we have approved the February 6th minutes with the correction to be added to the record. Item 5, public participation for general comments and/or proposed policy issues.
Board members, you have one person who signed up to address you for public participation. Tempest Gilmore would like to address you on lack of pay and schedule of deductions due to extended school day regarding hourly staff.
Thank you.
A little short. Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi. My name is Tempest Gilmore, and I am an academic coach at McWillie Elementary. And I I have 3 comments, but they're more like questions. So we receive, as hourly staff, the update from the board of how our February paycheck will be affected because of the 7 days out of school. And as it's very tough for our school system, we all know that for hourly staff, our pay is already decreased compared to teachers and those who are salaried. And so as we were talking about the effects of the February paycheck, there are 2 things. One there's one main thing since I have 3 minutes. Knowing that our pay will be deducted, I was wondering, as well as other people on my team, was there a consideration for taking 1 day for each paycheck for the month over a period of 5 months versus the whole deduction for February? Because a lot of people who work for JPS, hourly so, not only are they taking that 1 month's paycheck to pay for car, rent, childcare, gas, so that they can come to work, and then if you're taking 5 days of pay, for many that's $300+. And so that would affect their rent, their childcare, their gas to get to work. And so I just wanted to ask, was there a consideration for taking 2 days for the month of February and a day for March, April, May, so that would be the 5 days. And so it wouldn't be a big jolt for a lot of people who work for JPS, who love JPS, but who are working as hourly staff. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gilmore, for those remarks. They were very well presented and well worth our hearing and being made aware of. Okay. Good ideas. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all.
Thank you. Item 6, review of discipline cases. Dr. Knox?
No cases.
No cases. Thank you. Item 7, superintendent's reports and announcements.
Good evening, members of the board, community members. We have several items for discussion tonight. First, I'd like to start with Dr. Lockett, ask Dr. Lockett to come up for a brief presentation.
Good evening, President Harrison, members of the board, Dr. Mary. I would like to introduce to some, present to many, our Senior Vice President of Fisher Brown Bartrell Insurance Agency, our insurance agency of the district, Mr. Brian Johnson. As Mr. Johnson come forward to the podium, I would like to just say that they are great supporters and strong supporters of our risk management efforts in the district. Recently, upon analysis of the data, we showed a great reduction in chargeable accidents in our transportation department. You know that's big because we carry precious cargo every day to school and from school. So when we say that we have reductions in accidents, chargeable accidents, and non-chargeable, we're saying that we're providing a safe transportation department for our precious cargo. So at this time, I'll step aside and allow Mr. Johnson to come forward and discuss 3 awards that he'll be giving to our department, the transportation department, this evening. Mr. Johnson, welcome aboard.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Board of Trustees, Superintendent. Let me just start off by saying thank you for allowing me to be here. We appreciate the partnership, working together. And like Dr. Lockett said, what we're really wanting to celebrate here today is these 3 individuals' leadership of going above and beyond just the basic CDL driver training. When the partnership began with our agency, Fisher Brown Bartrell Insurance, we talked about ways to advance efficiency, value-added resources and services, and it's been well received, and we just appreciate the many hours, the training, extra training that's took place, and like Dr. Lockett said, it's really reflected into the decrease into the annual premiums. So without further ado, I would like these 3 individuals to come up And this is the Rising Star Safety Awards that will be presented. Matilda Thomas, would you please come forward? Janae Knott and Derek Williams. And I think the plaques. Yeah. And let me just also state, when I visited North and South Transportation, I was just amazed of, the participation level of our bus drivers, the involvement, the questions they asked, and they were really receptive to this additional training. I think also if they would stand, there's additional staff here from North and South Transportation. Could you please stand, please? And this is, like I say, really, well received, and we're really appreciative of it. So,
Thank you so much.
All right there. Right there, one more time. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. And last one. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Okay. At this time, thank you all. And again, it's a testament to the work that our people are doing in the Transportation Department. Dr. Lockett, thank you for your leadership. Mr. Williams and staff. At this time, we'd like to introduce some very special and distinguished individuals in our district. Our Teacher of the Year with Ms. Malakia Quarterman. Please come forward. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Quarterman was recently selected 2017-18 JPS Teacher of the Year. She is the chairperson of the Theater Arts program at Power APAC. She holds a master's degree in theater from Regent University and a Bachelor of Arts in Theater Performance from Belhaven. She graduated with honors from both institutions. Ms. Quarterman has traveled extensively as an artist and instructor, from teaching musical theater camps at the University of Miami to performing mime and dance workshops throughout Europe. Her current leadership roles include serving as director of the International Thespian Troupe 4909 as a board member for the Fondren Theater Workshop. One of her more recent achievements was the reinstatement of Power APAC's National Honor Society for Theater Students. Many of her graduates have obtained full scholarships in the university of their choice. Some have been hired as professional theater production at New Stage. Others have been offered movie contracts. We'd like to thank the following sponsors for their contributions for Teacher of the Year: Mississippi Association of Educators, a $500 program grant from Greater Jackson, floral arrangement from Kroger, complimentary tickets from the Mississippi Symphony, a gift card, $50 gift card from Lou's Full Service Restaurant, $25 gift card from Babalu's Restaurant, $25 gift card from School Aid. Ms. Quarterman will be considered with other outstanding teachers from across the state for the Mississippi Teacher of the Year. Please join me with another rousing round of applause for our 2008 Teacher of the Year. At this time, I would like her family to come up, and I'm going to, or her principal, and I'm going to allow Dr. Sivak, he's a parent, one of her students, to give this award. Thank you.
Dr. Murray, Dr. Harrison, if I could just take a point of personal privilege just to congratulate Mrs. Quarterman. if you ever want to feel proud of Jackson Public Schools, if you ever want to feel proud of being a resident of the city of Jackson, you need to go to our Broadway review. As a parent who's had a child or children in the district for nearly 10 years now, there is no night where I feel more pride of this district than when I'm sitting in the theater at Power APAC during the Broadway review. So I encourage the community to come out. Mrs. Quarterman, you are a tremendous leader. There was one Saturday where I went down to the school to hit fly balls with my son, and there in the parking lot was her van. She wasn't off with her children. She was with the district's children up in Clarksdale at a theater competition on a Saturday. So again, I think that just is an example of her commitment to making the district all that it can be. So Mrs. Quarterman, thank you for all you do. We are very proud and very lucky and grateful to have you in our system.
Next, Administrator of the Year, would Dr. Kathleen Grigsby please come forward? Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Kathleen Grigsby is principal of Davis Magnet School. She's the 2017-18 Administrator of the Year. JPS could not ask for a more qualified, inspiring, and innovative principal than our 2018 Administrator of the Year. Her ability to lead teachers, motivate students, and collaborate with parents in her school community has made Davis Magnet a model school. Dr. Grigsby started her career in 1998 as an elementary school teacher. Since 2009, she has served as the building level principal. She's been a principal at Davis Magnet since 2014. In 2011, she completed a doctorate in education leadership, becoming the first graduate of the Mississippi College doctoral program. She holds 5 Class 4A certification, and she has developed a catalog of presentations on a wide range of topics from literacy to teacher coaching. Dr. Grigsby's major community involvement includes serving as a commissioner on the Better Together Commission and Advanced Ed Review Committees. In these roles, she partners with citizens, organizations, and institutions, education leaders, and experts to help make decisions that positively impact all children. As principal at Davis Magnet, she has led the school to a top ranking in student proficiency every year. Under her leadership, the school has achieved an A rating accountability status with growth rates at almost 100%. We don't want to run through that stop sign. Almost 100% points in 2017, leading to the #1 ranking in the state of Mississippi. Davis Magnet has also received a 2017 Preps Value Added Award. And that award, to go a little deeper, that's about taking children that traditionally are not supposed to achieve at these levels and having them achieve at high levels. So that also speaks to the work that she's doing there. 2016 highest proficiency in map reading. In 2015, the school also received Preps Added Award in ELA and math. We'd like to thank the following sponsors for their donations for Administrator of the Year. Personalized plaque from Junior League, $200 monetary gift from Floor Arrangement from the PTA, Davis Magnet PTA, complimentary spa service from Spa Envy, 2 complimentary tickets to the Play Sister Act at New Stage, a mobile lab including 10 PBS Kids Playtime pads, $150 gift card from Bravos, certificate from Lee's Jewelers and specialty design mural in honoring and renaming the school to Barack Obama Elementary by the Greater Jackson Arts Council, a complimentary overnight stay, breakfast, and valet service at the Westin. As JPS Administrator of the Year, Dr. Grigsby will be considered with other outstanding administrators from across the state for the Mississippi Administrator of the Year. Please help me in recognizing and celebrating our 2018 Administrator, Dr. Kathleen Grigsby. I'd also just like to take a point to just to thank all of our principals and teachers for the work that they do each and every day. They do tremendous work in this district, and we appreciate them for the work. Next, we'll have a presentation by Dr. Wallace. If Dr. Wallace could come up, it's good to see you, Dr. Wallace. Dr. Wallace, come to the mic.
Good afternoon, Dr. Murray, Dr. Hairston, and members of the board. It is my honor to introduce our representative from RAND. This is our third and final year of implementing a Tools for Life, which is a grant that we wrote with RAND to improve school climate and safety in JPS. It is being implemented in 47 schools in the district and 3 of our alternative school sites as well. I've got some fast facts about the grant, and if you'd like some training in Tools for Life, we have coaches that are paid for through the grant that would be more than willing to provide that. And these are the lanyards that we wear that have the tools that the boys and girls learn. I'd also like to say that last week all bus drivers were trained in the tools. So we hope that they'll begin to use some of those tools and the language with our children. At this time, if Miss Elizabeth Thornton from RAND, this is a research grant, and every year we have to provide an update to the board about the implementation of the grant. So Ms. Thornton will represent RAND, and she will do a brief overview of the grant.
Good evening, Interim Superintendent Dr. Murray, Board President Dr. Hairston, and members of the board. Thank you for having me tonight. My name is Elizabeth Thornton, and I'm a policy analyst with the RAND Corporation. RAND is a nonprofit, nonpartisan research organization that develops solutions to public policy challenges to help make communities throughout the world safer and more secure, healthier, and more prosperous. So today I'll be presenting on the implementation and evaluation of the Tools for Life program to improve school climate and safety in Jackson Public School District. Don't be afraid of all the slides I have. I will run through them as rapidly as possible. With support from the National Institute of Justice Comprehensive School Safety Initiative and under the guidance of the Jackson Public School District Student Academic and Behavior Support Department, implementation of Tools for Life relationship building strategies have been added as a viable solution focused on designing and maintaining positive and safer school culture. The district is currently in its third and final year of Tools for Life implementation. The goal of the program is to build sound and objective knowledge to improve the safety of the nation's schools, students, and communities. The core elements of the program that make it unique are the innovative intervention, rigorous objective research, partnership between school district, research organization, and program designers. You can change the slide.
Next slide.
Next slide.
Oh.
Oh. Oops.
Okay.
One more back. There you go. Thank you. The project has 2 core efforts. The first is the implementation of the Tools for Life program. In the 2016-2017 school year, the program was implemented in randomly selected elementary and middle schools across the district. This current academic school year, the remaining schools are also receiving the program. The second core component is the evaluation, which the RAND Corporation is conducting. It's a randomized controlled trial, and there's 3 basic components to it: an outcomes analysis, implementation analysis, and cost-benefit analysis. Go to the next slide. This is, you can find more information on the fact sheet that Dr. Wallace provided for more details on the preliminary model of how Tools for Life can improve school climate and school safety. I'm going to do the next slide. And I'll quickly run through the different components that I mentioned for the implementation and evaluation. The first consists of an outcomes analysis data collection plan. The first is a school climate survey, and the second consists of administrative data. The school climate surveys are administered to students grades 3 through 8 whose parents, guardians have consented to participation in the study, as well as staff at all schools. The survey is measuring key constructs related to school climate, and students are taking the survey within schools in the computer labs. We've administered the survey twice each academic school year. Administrative data, the second component of the outcomes analysis, is an example of changes in behavior available from the administrative office from JPSD. You can go to the next slide. The second component of our evaluation is the implementation analysis. There's 3 components to this. Implementation questions included in the school climate surveys, the tools for life activities logs that teachers fill out, and also site visits to 6 case study schools that were randomly selected. Let's go to the next slide. For the school climate survey, you can see some more information about the student school climate survey as well as the staff school climate survey. You can go to the next slide. For the activity logs, you can see who and what and when and where those are taking place. Those are also integrated into the staff school climate surveys, and instructors are randomly selected to take those questions and submit them. Go to the next slide. For the case studies, as I mentioned, we randomly selected 3 elementary schools and 2 middle schools to do site visits twice a year. These consist of observations of classroom and open spaces, as well as conducting semi-structured interviews with key administrative staff and focus group with staff and parents. Go to the next slide. And the third component is a cost-benefit analysis, the shortest one, and this will involve a collection of cost data from both the district as well as the Tools for Life program. And in conclusion, this is our timeline for the remainder of the project. So in the spring, we'll be conducting our case study school site visits. May, student and staff school climate survey administration will take place. In June, interviews with key district personnel. And ongoing will be an administrative data poll and a data analysis and our report development. So thank you very much, and I apologize for the long presentation. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Yes, please. Oh, yeah, we have a few questions.
Ms. Thornton, I was just curious, inevitably there will be reports and findings, and they will be presented all over the country at conferences. And my question is, what is the strategy for sharing the findings with parents and with the stakeholders who work with the children every day?
Yeah, so our report, RAND's reports are publicly available, so everybody will have access to our final report. It'll be publicly available online.
Will you be available, or someone from your team, to be in the district to interpret the results for parents,
yes,
stakeholders?
Absolutely. I actually conduct the case study site visits, so I'll be here all month in the spring. So
we're talking about after the data is compiled and released nationally. Will you be back in the district to work with our community and parents?
Sure. I'm based in Rand's New Orleans office, so I come here quite often, so I can come at any time.
As part of our sustainability plan, we will share, we'll have a communication component of that. And we do want to share that, number one, with the board, and then as well with our community through our communications department and any other small group setting or large group setting, because we feel that the results are going to be good. Right now, the anecdotal data is very good. So it will be something for Jackson to celebrate. So we'll look at what type of venues would be best to get this kind of information out to, not only to our parents and close community, but the Jackson community and Mississippi as well.
Dr. Wells, can you share some of those anecdotes that you just referenced?
We have, every January, we have a Bring and Brag, and I've been privileged to attend those. And the teachers share their response and the students' response, and it's just been overwhelming. They've shared how they were reluctant at first. Some of our middle schools did not feel that it was appropriate for middle school, but they went ahead and implemented, and it's really been a paradigm shift in their understanding that to be able to have an academic success in that classroom, they have to build a relationship. And these are relationship building tools. So the teachers have found that it's most beneficial for them in just having a conducive classroom environment. We have also placed it in Henley Young and in our day treatment program and at Capital City, and we've gotten really good reviews about the tools are very simple. They're very common sense, but it is something that we have to acquire by experience in life normally. So having the opportunity to learn how to use these tools, how to identify your own feelings, and then also the feeling of others, and being able to have compromise. And another part that's very important, oftentimes our students are put in compromising positions that they're not able to regain their self-control. In every learning environment, there's a calm down area, and they're taught how to use that calm down area, and that's not time out, and there are activities very well planned for them to do while they're in that area and to regain their composure, come up with a solution using the tools, and then resolve that conflict. So the teachers overwhelmingly have just shared what a change is made for them in their thoughts about what their job is, and having tools that they can use, because they're not therapists and they're not counselors, but these tools are safe for them to use. So it's been just overwhelming for me to listen to them, because this is our desire. We want to sustain this implementation long after the grant is gone. So that's something that we're really planning for in the next months, that this will just be a way of life in our middle schools and elementary schools. That's where the grant was. And our hope is that we can get another grant for restorative justice, and this is a precursor for restorative justice. The language that is used, and so we're ripe and ready for a good implementation there.
You mentioned that you collected data last year, fall and spring. What did that data show? Can you give us any idea of what the data collection was, and what have you learned from that initial data collection?
Sure. So we did a school climate survey for both students and staff, as well as the activity log. At this point, we can't share the preliminary results until we finish the entire data collection, because it was only conducted on our treatment schools, or half the schools that were randomized. But this, again, is our last year for data collection this spring. So we can certainly give you preliminary information after that.
About how many children are participating in this?
It's in the fact sheet, right?
No, not the number of children. We have it in 47 schools. We've trained over 2,000 staff members, not counting the bus drivers that were trained last week. And we have done over 150 classroom demonstrations. Part of the grant has in-house, district-level coaches, and then consultants. And our coaches and consultants are here. They've raise their hands, and they're in the buildings coaching. We wanted this to be something that teachers could do without adding work to them, but they, as I said, overall they have embraced it. You know, even those reluctant people, it's a solution for them. I think that all teachers want to be successful in interactions with students and want to have a safe, positive learning environment, and so that's what we're looking at. And our rate of suspensions are down. So we attribute, you know, it's not scientific, but we feel that because we are giving them tools, and especially in our middle school, we're giving them tools, and our alternative settings, we're giving them some viable tools that can make a difference.
Thank you. And one more question. You're going to conduct a cost-benefit analysis. What is the cost to the district for this 2-year project?
So it's looking at both costs for training and in-kind donations. So it's looking at a variety of different variables, which we can provide follow-up information on specifically about.
So you can't tell me now how much this costs, this 2-year
We're still in the
project?
process of doing the collection and analysis.
There's been no cost to the district except office space. It was a $5 million grant. And of course, about $3 million was to purchase. We've purchased not only all the tools, first class, we also purchased literature that goes along with each lesson. And every school has a full library of books to go with the Tools for Life lessons. So, but it was no cost to the district except for in-kind, the office space and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I also wanted to add, the Tools for Life program was customized to Jackson Public School District specifically, and if you look at the information, it's actual students from the district who are photographed in the teacher guides and signage. So there was a lot of thought put into this population of students specifically.
We wanted to make sure it was culturally relevant. We also looked at the literature, the suggested books that they had, to pull out books that we felt were more relevant to our learners. So as she said, not only in the publication of the posters and our children are on those posters and things of that nature. Songs, we've changed a lot of the music that goes along with the lessons to be more relevant to our boys and girls. And then, as I said, the books that were selected to be purchased to accompany and complement the lessons.
Dr. Wallace, can you share with the board some of these schools where this is operating so we might visit and see?
All elementary,
Mm-hmm.
except Davis and McWillie, because they already had something going, and all middle schools, our day treatment program, Capital City, and Henley Young.
Great, thank you very much. Other questions or comments from the board? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the last item is, as a result of our extended days, we've been having makeup days, extended days in our schools. The district has reached out to partners to support us with snacks, specifically in our elementary schools. Many of our elementary schools are part of the fruit and vegetable program that provides afternoon snacks for students. Out of the 37 elementary schools, we have identified 12 that are not a part of the fruit and vegetable program. So according to the food department, to our food service department, each snack, if we had to purchase snacks for our students, it would be 30 cents per student per day. So of course the district does not have the budget to purchase the snacks for students for extended days, so we've reached out to our partners and they have responded like always. Today we have a list of partners that have stepped up to support us. I have Ms. Faulkner here who can talk specifically, but we have a $250 donation from the ministry. We have Jones, Walker Law Firm, Sunrise Fresh Products, Trustmark, and then at the bottom, if you can see, we have a $5,000 donation from Tony Cooley with Systems Companies. And we are coordinating those efforts through our Partners in Ed department, again, and we have other contributions that are coming in each and every day. But if you all have any questions about that, of course, Ms. Faulkner, we can reach out to her if you have a willingness to give. We definitely have the mechanism to receive that and to make sure that our schools receive that. I think today we met some principals at Sam's to pick up some items through the donations that we have. So we are working through that process, and we are providing those snacks where possible to our students.
Will you share with the board the schools that are in greatest need that do not have programs in place?
You have the 12.
The 12 schools who don't have. And is there any direction from the district regarding the quality of the snacks, with no disrespect to anyone who might want to give?
Yes.
We do need to be mindful of healthy snacks.
Yes, we are. If you can pull that information up for us. Any snacks, let me just say first, because the snacks are not a part of the food service program, we don't have the same limitations that we would have if we were providing the snacks through the district. Ms. Hill did share that with us. So again, even though when we provide snacks, if we were to go through the system, everything would be baked. We'd have baked chips, those specific standards for things that the district would purchase. But outside of the district, it's not as stringent as it relates to that. But of course, we want healthy snacks. There's a list of items that we have that are available of the kinds of things that we're looking for. But Ms. Faulkner can address that for us specifically.
Good evening, President and Board. The 12 schools, elementary schools that do not receive snacks with the fruit and vegetable program are Baker, Brown, Casey.
Slow down.
Okay.
Baker, Brown, Casey.
Davis, Galloway, George, McLeod, McWillie, North Jackson, Oak Forest, Power APAC, and Watkins. I'll be happy to email this list. As Dr. Murray said, we're not as restricted, but Ms. Hill did give us a list of suggested healthier snacks, and so we shared that list with our partners, and they have pretty much complied with those lists, and others have given monetary donations for the schools to purchase what they needed. But partners have stepped up, adopters have made contacts, parents have been sending snacks not only for their children, but for their classmates as well.
So if the schools are not on this list, then we can be fairly well assured that they have some snack for them.
Well, our initial outreach was to take care of the elementary schools, but I have had the adopters call and ask, is there a need at the middle school? And of course, whatever school they want to support, we are encouraging them to do so. So I did hear from a church right before the meeting, that's the adopter for Kirksey Middle School. So we're trying to provide support wherever it's needed, but our initial focus was to make sure that all of the elementary schools were covered.
And only elementary schools have the snack program already in place, the fruit and vegetable snack?
Yes, ma'am, only 25 of the elementary schools.
No middle, no high school?
No middle, no high school.
So there's a need at the middle and high school. Yeah. Thank you, it's very helpful.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, there's a need more so at the middle. We definitely want to collaborate with the schools at the secondary because again that process is much different than an elementary school, from snack standpoint. And what we found is the times that, in many cases, not all, but the times that our middle and high school students are getting home is much like it was before. There was sometimes a stall in. I had one principal to contact me and say that, they're actually students are having to wait 5 minutes as compared to 20 in the past. So even though that window is kind of closing with the extended time, it's proving beneficial in some cases for our secondary schools. But again, it's a little different dynamic with secondary schools when with the distribution and snacks. So, but again, we want to work through Ms. Faulkner's office, through Partners in Ed, to provide those resources for schools.
And so principals may also just reach out as they need to get help.
Yes, and they are, and some of them are definitely reaching out to their internal stakeholders to do that.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. Okay, that is superintendent's remarks. All right, yes? Mm-hmm.
Dr. Hairston, could I ask Dr. Murray a question?
Sure.
I'm sorry I did not get your name from McWillie, but you did ask a series of questions earlier about the extended day.
Ms. Gilmore.
Ms. Gilmore, is that? Okay, and I just, Dr. Murray, if you could please address some of the questions that were raised. Thank you for coming out and sharing that perspective, and we've heard you, and I want to make sure you get a response.
And thank you. We've looked at every option that is available because we do know that our classified staff definitely are not paid as much as we would like to pay them, and so we know that 5 days of anybody's salary would be a definite would be a burden. And so we've been looking at options since this came up. It's been driven by the law, though. The decisions that we've made have been driven by how we interpret the law. And so we've been going out asking for opinions on specific. Just the comment you made earlier about the 1 day. We actually submitted a request last week for an opinion from the Attorney General's office, specifically to answer that question. And we've not, of course, at this time, we've not gotten a response on the extended days. But we have, I'd like Attorney Shepherd to kind of share some information that we found out today. Just before coming here, we were able to get some informal feedback on a request that we've made. And so we are looking at every option, and so Attorney Shepherd will speak to another option that we've been exploring.
Thank you, Dr. Murray, members of the board. As Dr. Murray stated, we have been exploring several different options to avoid, and to make it as painless as possible. And I just want to preference it by saying that we have several different entities that we have to consult with and satisfy, and all of that. So it's just not one. It's not as simple as it seems. But at any rate, I did reach out to the Attorney General's office late this afternoon and pose the question specifically for our hourly employees, because we know that the hourly employees are the ones who are greatly impacted. And the question was whether or not the board would have the authority to grant additional leave days to cover those 5 days that persons may not have enough leave, and of course, if they don't have enough leave to cover those days, then currently they would be docked for the missing leave days. And the informal response that I received was that, yes, the board does have the authority to award additional leave days if the board finds that it's reasonable to do so. That, of course, is an informal response. It's not in writing, very informal, because we just wanted to have something prior to board meeting to inform the board and inform our employees and the public. And so that is where we are right now at this point in time. But because there are additional entities that we would have to check with, we also, and Ms. Turner suggested, and we concurred, that we also needed to talk with the state auditor's office, because the auditor's office is another entity that deals with the payment. Any payments need to be legal and, authorized. There needs to be a lawful expenditure. So we would like to have a conversation with them and just get them to sign off on everything. And we would like to have a conversation with MDE to just get MDE to sign off, and so that all the entities that we deal with, and we've kind of narrowed it down and said that it was the MDE, the state auditor's office, and the Attorney General's office, because the Attorney General's office was the one who issued the initial opinion that said unless we had a policy, then you could not grant administrative leave. This might be a little bit different because it's not really administrative leave, it's just additional leave days. And of course, it would be subject to the maximum amount allowed by state law. And I think even before today, we'd had a discussion, Ms. Miller, Ms. Turner, and I, and we had determined that most people were not capped out on the leave, on the maximum leave awarded under state law. So there is some flexibility, but we wanted to stay within those parameters. To make sure that every entity that impacts the school district is on the same page.
And approximately how many people are you talking about? Do you know right offhand?
How many employees?
How many employees, yeah, in that category?
Thank you, Ms. Hilliard. Right now, we don't know how many employees will be affected by not having enough leave, because this is a person-by-person manual thing. We have over 1,800 classified employees. And so at this point, we are having to touch every single solitary employee, because every employee is not going to be docked. There are a number of employees that have the days, but of course, the biggest impact are those classified employees that are at the schools who don't receive those additional days. So as we manually do this process, we will not know until, as a matter of fact, my payroll supervisor asked could they work Saturday overtime to get this done, because we are adamant that we get this correct and that we make sure that everybody has every option available so that we can minimize the impact. So I can't tell you exactly how many people. There's also the thing that comes into play with payroll, because the February check covers previous days. There's also a concern that they may have been classified employees or individuals who took off additional days for those 7 than those 5. So they may be docked because of various reasons. So there's some logistical things that we have to work out. And for me to really tell you who's being docked based on these 5 days, it's a little bit difficult at this point for me to tell you. And unfortunately, we're right close to the end of the month. It may very well not be until Monday when we actually send payroll to the bank, and at that point, payroll is gone. But there are we've talked about some options that in the event that we get some clarity and on what we can do, there are some logistical things that we can do to make employees whole.
So help me understand the time frame, because we're trying to get this taken care of by next Monday.
Correct. So the way that our payroll system works is that it covers previous days. So the February 28th check, or the February checks, cover days from the end of December through the end of January. So of course, those are the days that we missed. So in order to have direct deposit, which we require by law to pay everybody electronically, we have to have the payroll information to the bank no later than 2 days before the payday to make it on time. And so Monday becomes my deadline for this month. And so it is time urgent. It's not even sensitive, it's time urgent.
And we're going to need board approval for whatever comes up, whatever recommendation.
Yes, and I think what Ms. Shepherd and I had talked about was if the board was willing to act, then it would be action of a contingent or subject to nature. Because, if we get it wrong, it's not necessarily the employees who pay. I mean, quite frankly, it's the board members who get a demand letter from the auditor's office demanding the repayment of the illegally paid funds. So that is at least my particular concern as the board attorney, that while it's well and fine for the AG's office to verbally tell you something, when you don't have a formal opinion, and quite frankly, when the opinion that they give you verbally contradicts what their prior opinions have said, then I think it becomes particularly important to be sure that, have they talked to, or, is this going to be the same position that the auditor's office takes? And when we have communications from MDE that essentially say something different also based on the prior AG opinions, then I think to step out at this point and at least do it without any sort of caveats would not be the wisest move. So what we were contemplating was asking that the board take the action, but it would be contingent upon getting something a little bit more reliable, and perhaps, if not a formal AG opinion, but at least, talking to some folks very high up in both of those other entities, because they're the ones who would start any sort of enforcement. MDE from the accreditation side, the auditor's office from the payment side, from the monetary demand. So what we want to be sure is, like I say, that what the AG's office is telling us is what they're also telling those other entities, and all of them agree. And so it's that process that's taking a little while. But yeah, we would ask that if the board is willing to act, that you do it, but it would be with those kind of caveats and contingencies in place.
So is it likely that we're going to get this resolved by Monday?
You know, that's not, I mean, all I can tell you is we can call them, we can express to them the urgency of the situation, and I don't think we're necessarily the only district in this position, so we may not be the only. I think it's a really important question to answer, not just for JPS, but for other districts in general, and maybe some other districts that might be in the same situation as us. And I think that, I mean, I have no reason to believe that they won't try to help us and be cooperative, but, you know, as I said, this really is seemingly a different interpretation of how they have looked at these laws before. So to just go on a verbal is, I think, not quite the comfort level that we would ideally like to have.
And I would just like to say that, speaking, the Attorney General's office was very, very responsive. I literally called them this afternoon and got almost a 20-minute response time with an answer. So they recognized the situation and was very, very responsive in that regard.
But I have to concur with Attorney Turner. I would, for my comfort level as CFO, to make a recommendation to this board to ratify payroll, I would need to have a comfort level from the state auditor's office, who would be the entity that would impact me as CFO and you as board members, that the payments that were made were legal. And so, as Attorney Turner said, because if it's deemed not to be, then it could become a liability of you as individual board members.
I think I only have one more question. If we don't get in writing the affirmation that we need to feel comfortable, can we execute this next payroll period? Does it?
I would then execute February's pay as I have now, which would in effect affect those employees that don't have sufficient leave. And I would be bound to do that. I think it's the responsible position that I would have to take at that point. Now that does not, and we've talked about if it comes after that point, it may be logistically an issue for me, but I will committed to work it out so that if it was cleared, we would figure out how to make those employees whole. But if we did not, I would have to recommend that professionally, I would have to recommend to move forward as we are now.
So are we going to get a recommendation from you tonight? Is this?
No,
That's
ma'am.
not.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Payroll is not on the finance agenda tonight.
No,
Yeah.
February payroll will not be until March, when I bring the March things to you. But at that point, and I will make particular comment at that point that the February payroll either included pay or we got clearance and it did not.
Okay,
but
great.
after that point, it's done, and so I just will not feel comfortable making a payment that I am not comfortable with
Great.
from the state auditor's office, that it will not affect the district and or you as individual board members.
Thank you. This has been very helpful discussion. Thank you. Dr. Silva, did you have something?
I guess for board discussion, should we look to see if we're able to get together later in the week to take up this issue? Should we get clarity?
I was in a session this afternoon where Jim Keith was there, and there was a similar question that was asked. And he pointed to the fact that if you are a board member and you sign off on something that is not legal, then the board members will be held liable for the money. So he strongly suggested that you do not go that route. That was session at the Mississippi School Board Association.
So my question was then, rather than approving something contingently, should we look at our schedules to have a possible meeting later in the week should more information come to light about the legality of the payment?
I think so. And in fact,
Oh, that would be.
I think we have some vacancies on our calendar that we
I
might
don't
could
know.
do.
I don't think so.
We can tell you if you did, I mean, board members wouldn't have to come. I mean,
Right.
it can be a call-in meeting. You can call from wherever. And I mean, and technically, we just need 4 of you, to have a quorum, so we can make it as convenient as possible. Very short meeting, done completely by conference call with that one and only item on there. So all of about, 10 or 15 minutes of your time, if that were necessary. That would be my preference. It's just if the board wasn't willing to do that, the second best answer would be to do something contingent.
I agree that we should do this and that we owe it to our classified staff to do this. If we can in any way alleviate the burden on them, we should do it.
Yeah, definitely.
Could we set a time of maybe 4 p.m. on Friday for a call? 5 p.m.?
Is that too late?
5 p.m. Friday? Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, it's a good question. I should be looking at you.
I'll just have staff on standby, and we'll just.
Earlier the better, though.
The earlier the better for me, because again, I have classified people that do this work, and so if they will need to work over the weekend, I would definitely need to let them know as early as I possibly could, because they are classified staff as well. So.
How much time? So obviously we want to give the attorneys time to reach out to the proper.
We'll do that first thing in the morning.
Okay.
We won't be slow.
Maybe through.
It's a matter of how high up the food chain we can get in, a certain period of time. I mean, that's really what it boils down to.
How quickly they respond.
Yes. And that's what we just don't have much control over. But I mean, like I say, in the past, and even today, they've been as cooperative as we could ever wish.
We are, as a board, coming together for the working meeting with the Council of Great City Schools on Thursday. If it's by them, potentially, since we'll already be
gathered here.
May not have the information then.
We may not have it, but if we do, that might be a good.
Can we take action in a work session?
Well,
what we would do is, if we found out about it, we would amend the notice of the meeting to do it.
Thank you very much. This is very helpful.
Madam President, I have a quick question. Did everyone that wanted to speak for public comment speak? Were there any?
On that it signed up. Oh, wait. Yeah, everyone that, I only had the one person.
Okay.
We can't hear what do we?
They said that there are more people that wanted to speak for public comment.
Oh, this is the only one they.
So.
Well, can we allow that without them signing up?
Well, your policy says not, but I'll say you're the board and it's your meeting.
What is the policy? They have to have them in by what time?
The policy says that, you sign up to request, but it's kind of one of those things that I'd say when it comes to the conduct of the board meetings, I don't think you're going to get a lawsuit.
That's what they did.
Okay. Who'd they give them to?
Okay.
Then they signed up.
Thank you, ladies.
And it's taking them out of order.
Thank you so much. Are we at a place in our agenda?
We need to amend the agenda, or is it?
No, I mean, it's on the agenda.
Okay.
You're just
Okay.
taking these folks out of order.
Okay, so Ms. Shepherd, we are finished with item 8, and yeah. Thank you. Please, Dorian, please. Yes, it was Ms. Miller's report, right? No, that was Ms. Shepherd's report. Was it the superintendent's report?
That was a question.
Okay, thank you. But this is an appropriate time.
Well, for the
Public comment.
I've just looked at them, and I think they would probably be more suitable in executive session. They tend, I guess, to deal with the restructuring of the curriculum department. So if it deals with personnel.
Why don't you move on and let me talk to
Okay,
them and
okay.
see. In either you can take them in open session, or if we think it might be more suitable for executive session, we can hold it until then.
Great, thank you. Ms. Turner is going to speak with you just a minute to get some clarity about how we can do this in policy. Thank you. Okie doke, item 8. Ms. Shepherd?
Thank you, Dr. Harrison. Dr. Murray, members of the board, you have before you several policies in the A and B section that are submitted for review. And this starts the review cycle of policies that you will get these every month. Policies in section A deal with the school district organization, and they mainly deal with the operation of the board. It discusses such things as the school district legal status, the qualifications for board members, what authority you have, how unexpired terms are filled, the superintendent's legal status, the school calendar, and legal holidays. And this is just a summary of all the policies. There are also some policies in section B that are recommended that are being reviewed as well. And these policies deal with how the board is organized. It deals with board officers, the powers and duties of the board member orientation. You know that you have to complete your MSBA training within a certain time, that's 6 months. Board member compensation, how committees are formed by the board, how board committees are formed. The superintendent can appoint board members to serve on special committees such as the budget, personnel. We've had various board committees. Board superintendent relationships, administrative consultants, how consultants and contractors are evaluated. That's has sparked a lot of interest and questions from the board. Deals with board meetings. It also deals with agendas and says that one policy is the rules of order, and that says that you may adopt your own parliamentary procedures or operate under Robert's Rules of Order. It's, the board's prerogative. Now, there are some policies that we have reviewed that we've marked for revisions, and I tried to highlight those. One is deals with the emergency closing of schools, and you see that that policy needed some revision to avoid the situation that we're currently in. So Ms. Turner and I have worked on that policy, and that's for revision as well as review. So with that particular policy, we'll send it out to the school community, and we'll bring it back to you all at the March meeting for approval with any other revisions that might be needed. The school day policy is also up for revision. We were going to tweak that by removing the language that dealt with 27.5 hours because the day requires 330 minutes of instructional time, and so we're just not breaking it down into the number of hours, the 27.5 hours. The other policy deals with school calendar. That is recommended for revision. We wanted to clarify or distinguish in a greater fashion the difference between the minimum school term that has to be in session and the number of the percentage of the instructional day that students are expected to attend schools. Those are two different things, and we're going to try to make that clearer. And that those revised policies will also be sent out to the school community for them to look at and give any input.
Are they going to be?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
They're going to be sent out as a draft, or okay?
Yes, ma'am.
So it's not the revised policy; it's a draft of the revisions of the policy.
It is the policy will contain the revisions. So it's the yes. The
Once it's approved, then you will send it out. Is that what you're saying? You're going to send it out before it's approved.
Yes, because how the board policy cycle works is that the superintendent recommends policy changes or policies to you. Those recommendations will either come in the form of a completely new policy, or it will come in the form of amendments to a current policy. And these policies that I've talked about are amendments to current policies.
So what is submitted today under this item are amendments to current policy.
The ones that I've highlighted.
In red.
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am. And so those are our suggested amendments. And we post those and email them to schools and, post them on the website so that the community can see what the proposed revisions are. And then they have come in sometimes and suggest additional revisions, or board members might suggest revisions. And then it comes back for approval and it becomes a final policy.
And this would be back at the next board meeting?
It's scheduled to be back at the second board meeting.
So, this is information only.
Yes, it is information only at this particular.
Can we request more information?
Ma'am?
May I request more information regarding these policies?
Yes, certainly.
Okay, does anybody else have anything to say right now?
I have a question. Is there any reason we don't have a specific policy on superintendent qualifications, seeing that we have specific legislation?
No, but we can do that. I think during the time that we were reviewing the policies, the first cycle, I think that legislation had just recently changed or was changing, but we can insert that.
Well, my concern is that the board hadn't been given enough time to really comment on the policies. Well, this board member, I've read some. I'm particularly concerned about school calendar, emergency closing of schools, our mission and vision statement. But I'm not prepared to send that out for anybody's comment because it needs a lot of work. So, well, I'm not asking you to pull. I would just rather table all of these until a later date, because I think the board needs to look at all of our policies. I think it would be helpful from your staff, Dr. Murray, to identify the policies that are most time sensitive, rather than just take them A and B and C, because there might be something in D and E that we need to attend to now. Because I'm just not comfortable, but you didn't ask for our approval. You're just letting us know this is what you want to do.
Well, not exactly what I want to do. It's the process that we've used in the past. We normally review policies section by section. The review cycle is placed in the cap. So the cap said, the last cap, said that the board would review policies section by section. So we started in February of last year doing section A and section B. And it's done for information first. So we don't send out the policies to anyone until those policies have been presented to the board. And then once the policies are presented for review, then they're posted on the website. If they're revised, if they're presented for revisions, as some of these are, I think about 4 or 5 of them are, if they're presented for revisions, then at that point, the revisions that we are proposing are contained in the policies. And so at that point, once the board has seen the policies, they're placed on the board material under information because there's no action required at this particular point. Then Ms. Keeler, the web manager, sends out an email to everybody in the district and says, these are the policies that are up for revision. They were presented, this would be the typical email. They were presented at the February 20th school board meeting. They will be brought back before the board for approval at the March 25th meeting, or whatever that second board meeting is in March. And at that point, the comments or the feedback would begin, and usually there's not a lot of feedback, but at any rate, the feedback would begin, and the board and myself and the superintendent would see all the comments, and then you would have to decide if that was a suggested revision that you wanted to put in the policy. The same way would work if the board wanted a particular revision, or as Ms. Johnson did, wanted a particular policy or language in there, then that would be accommodated. But that is the procedure that has worked in the past, but certainly if it's not the will of the board or the pleasure of the board, then we can certainly change the procedure. And we can point out policies that are time sensitive. Some of the policies are time sensitive, and that's why we were trying to start early to get those policies in the handbook so that the handbook could be completed.
But these aren't organized by time sensitive.
I'm sorry?
These are not organized by time sensitive. That's what's making me
Yes,
let me yield and let my board speak.
They're just organized as they are in the policy manual.
Right.
And so if that's a problem, then we can organize by time sensitive. But currently, the process is that every policy is reviewed by section, and the board looks at it and then makes changes or approves it at the next meeting.
Well,
certainly, I'm sorry.
Well, no, I so often feel I'm just talking too much, but I am, this is a new board, and so I'm very cognizant of the fact, like signing documents and approving policies that didn't generate from this board or with the input of this board. So I wish I could hear a motion to table. Let this board have some time to talk more about this, and we're getting some school board association training that will help us think through board policy. And I am very aware that the language of reviewing the policy monthly is in our corrective action plan. But we didn't do it in January, so I think we've got some wiggle room. I think the spirit of the corrective action plan is that this current board gets our policies right and strong and in line with the law and with our vision, and we have not had a chance to do that.
Yes, and I certainly understand that, and just wanted to clarify that the policies are not presented to the board for approval. They were just presented for information, but as I said, certainly any change in structure, is acceptable.
I also think it's probably a benefit for, before the policies are made public or left open for comment, that we've been able to make our comments so the public is fully informed.
Yes. And that is certainly, you know, acceptable. You can, and normally that happens at this section, at this session, as well at the informational session presented to the board.
Let me ask a question. The policies are to be submitted with the cap when the cap is turned in, Dr. Murray?
No, ma'am. You said the policies. No, there's language in the corrective action plan that speaks to policy, how we review and revise our policies, and typically, this has been the process.
That's what I meant to say.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, that is a requirement.
It has to be, and that plan has to be submitted by when?
Friday. Friday. Friday.
Friday.
Friday by 4:30.
Friday by 4:30.
But the plan only says that we will review, and so that's a matter of tweaking that language. Rather than saying we're going to do it monthly, that we're going to review it, we're going to get professional development to help us, and we'll have it done in a timely manner. But we're not bound by, because if we were bound by that, we're already late. So clearly we're not bound by that.
Well,
I don't think that's the spirit of what MDE is expecting.
I think my policy, my section, Standard 1, says that you will do it monthly. You'll do a monthly review because you have to.
We're having our monthly review right now.
Yes, exactly. So you will do a monthly review because the board has to review the policies annually. So we just came up with a schedule to do it because there's like 400 and some policies. But if I understand it correctly from the administrators, in their standards, there's some other policies that do have timelines in it. Now, certainly, you know, I'm sure they could probably adjust it, but I do know there's been some conversation that the graduation policy, there's some language that they have in the minimum grade and grade adjustment policy that they have said would be reviewed or approved by, you know, March 30th or April 18th, or there are some other dates in policies that are affected. But I believe you know, again, it's the will of the board.
So if you're doing a monthly review, the ones that you have singled out, this is the monthly review for those.
Yes,
and then next month, then you would have additional ones that would be up for review.
I would go to the C section of the policies, and there's additional policies that the administrators have targeted that they want to have reviewed and revised prior to the Code of Conduct handbook going into play. So I would include those policies. Some of them are included today.
Yes, and I'm sorry, and we do, Dr. Harrison, in the spirit of your concern, we do prioritize standards. Some that even though we go through the section, there are some standards that we know that have to be addressed that are time sensitive. So we include those in the sectional review. So we, even though there are not priority standards, I'm thinking academics, but there are priority policies that we have to address in a time-sensitive, format. So we do, if we're doing Section A and there's something in C that we know we have to address, we'll include it in A if necessary.
Would it be possible for you or Dr. Merritt or someone on your team to identify in the CAP where you might need a more immediate attention to the policy? Mm-hmm. Because that would be very helpful to us, and we do have time between now and Friday at 4:30 to give feedback on that. Mm-hmm. Yes, and we welcome your suggestions. This policy, we think it should be changed this way. Help us get it right so we can move forward. But I just want to represent the spirit of the CAP and are being serious about doing everything we say with the highest integrity, with the most careful attention, and that does take time.
Dr.
Yes,
Harrison,
we can do that.
Thank you.
Dr. Hairston, and this is maybe a question for the attorneys as well, I believe it's within your authority to appoint a committee to review policies. And so what I might recommend is that we create a subcommittee of the board of 3 board members to take the lead on reviewing the policies. We know from our school board training that we need to take ownership over these policies, and I think the review that we will do over the next year is at a critical time, and we need to do more than just look at them to make sure that they are acceptable. We need to look at them in a way that's forward-looking, and in a way where we've gone through the actions to say we own these policies, we are responsible for these policies. And so I would recommend that we create a subcommittee of the board that includes 3 members, and I believe it is within your authority to appoint members to that subcommittee.
Should I duly appoint them now?
That is within your authority.
Oh, I like this. Well, in fact, thank you for reminding me. That was a 4th point I wanted to say why we need more time, is that, in fact, I did reach out to Dr. Robert Luckett, Ms. Barbara Hilliard, and Attorney Letitia Simmons Johnson to serve as a policy subcommittee of the board. We'll get in writing from Dr. Merritt those policies that the district feels like we really need to address immediately that align with the CAP. And then under your leadership, we'll get some direction as to how we want to proceed. Thank you.
I do have one other question about this. In the executive summary, there are sections of the policies that seem to be annotated in red. I assume those are the ones in particular with these sections of A and B that we need to particularly look at right now per your estimation.
Yes.
Yes. And those are the ones that are, it also denotes that those are the ones for revisions, yes.
Thank you. We'll get back to you on the plan for doing all of that as soon as possible. Item 9, information action items, the approval of the monthly financial report. Ms. Miller? Oh, I'm sorry. Is it time for our public comment? Thank you, Dr. Murray.
Yes.
Excuse me, Ms. Miller. Thank you so much. We would like to hear from the participants who we did not include earlier in our public comment.
Board members, Shalitha Wilson Fisher would like to address you on restructuring of the curriculum department.
Good evening. Thank you all for giving me the opportunity to come and speak with you. My name is Dr. Shalitha Wilson Fisher, and I currently serve as a subject area supervisor in the curriculum department. Previously, I served in the capacity as a teacher with JPS as an English teacher, high school English teacher actually. Basically, I am just here this evening to see if you all could provide some clarity for me in terms of the restructuring of the curriculum department, because on last week, the curriculum department received a document in the form of a letter, and basically there were certain questions that I had and that were not addressed in the format that I understood concerning the details of the letter. So I'm just here, just basically seeing if you all could provide me some additional clarity. And I have a copy of the document of the letter if you all would like to see it and have any follow-up questions for me.
Board members, I can't address Ms. Fisher's question. What I would suggest to you, though, is that public participation is an opportunity for the public to address you. It is not a question and answer session, or it is not intended to be a question and answer session. The board, at its desire or will, can certainly ask, me, the superintendent, or a member of the administration to talk to you individually or to, speak in general if that's their wish. But but I would say the format for just asking or answering individual questions, then this would not necessarily be the appropriate format for that.
Thank you. Did you say you had something in writing for us?
Yes, ma'am. I have the copies of the document that was given to us on last week in the form of a letter.
I would like to see that, but I at this point don't have any questions.
Okay.
Unless Dr. Murray would like to speak to this issue.
No, ma'am, not at this point. No.
Can I come forward?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
But I would like to say that we are available. The administration, staff, HR department, legal department are available and have had conversations with everyone that received the letter, one-on-one conversations, and we are available to continue to do that, to answer every question that might exist. We are available to do that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Next board members, Tracy Thompson would also like to address you on restructure of the curriculum department.
Good evening. My name is Tracy Thompson. I'm also a subject area supervisor in the curriculum department. Prior to this position, I served as an English teacher at Jim Hill High School in the IB program, as well as with non-IB students. Again, just like Ms. Fisher said, we were told and then were given a document that stated that the curriculum department was restructuring. When we asked, what does that restructure look like? How is it going to happen? How are we involved, or how are we affected by it? We were not given any kind of information about that other than the letter that was given to us. And so I'm concerned about it because I'd like to know, what is it going to look like? What will it entail? How will it impact my job? You know, what additional duties or a decline of duties would be affected? You know, because I'm here in the district to serve the kids in the district. The children come first, and I want to do everything I possibly can to make sure that they are successful as well as this district is successful. Okay, and I also received the same letter. I have a copy if you'd like a copy.
Thank you so much, Ms. Thompson. I appreciate it. We appreciate your remarks.
I would like to just address, without going specifically into any personnel, but just to try to provide some context to this process. We are restructuring the curriculum department, and there's some specific information contained in the letter as to what the restructure will look like and why. The biggest component is we're moving to a 246-day contract, which is different from what we have. And again, legal can speak to the logistics of that. But again, we are moving to a 246-day contract because we have seen through the data and through experience that in our curriculum department, that is what is needed in order to best serve our students. We need to have staff from a curriculum standpoint that are available year-round, that can support the work. We've communicated this back in October that we would be moving in this direction with the curriculum department because of the necessity. Because again, the summer is when the work, takes place. Just like in athletics, the off season is when you prepare for, the actual work. So we have to, a lot of the work that happens in the summer, building curriculum, providing professional development. So we need curriculum staff that are available. So we are moving to a 246-day contract. That is the basis of the restructure. And again, individually, we are available to answer any questions. We've tried to be very transparent about salary, about days, about opportunities that exist, and we will continue to try to do that throughout this process and be very fair and transparent about what we're doing and why we're doing it. And ultimately, the decision was made to better support our students, to better support our teachers so that they can better support our students. So we just wanted to make that clear that is the purpose for this whole conversation about the restructure.
Thank you, Dr. Murray. And as we mentioned earlier regarding the board policies, this is a new board, and you've just talked about things that happened in October about which the board isn't informed. So it's very important that you keep us all aware. This is a new board, and it's very uncomfortable to be dealing in items, policies, practices, organizational reorganization that came up through a board that has no responsibility to that now. And we must address that and not ignore the reality of that and how it impacts our policies and our practices moving forward.
I do have a question. So the basis of the restructure is the change in days. Are there any other restructuring issues that are?
There are other issues with the restructure, but again, the extension of days requires a new contract, and again, Attorney Shepard can speak to the legal issues with that involved in that. And then again, this is the situation that we brought to the board's attention a few board meetings ago. Again, we wanted to bring this information before it actually occurred. So this is the conversation that we had a few weeks ago.
Yes, if you want me to address the legal issues, would you please? Okay. As Dr. Murray said, and I think as this board knows, the curriculum department is being restructured. What that would necessitate is a change in the contract. The current contract reads subject area supervisor, I believe, 187 days. This new contract would read the same thing, but it would necessitate an increase in the number of days, 246 days. So to the school law people, that necessitates a new contract, which necessitates a non-renewal, because the contract for this contract for this current school year, the administration is saying would not offer you that contract again. So what that is the non-renewal of your current contract and the issuance of a new contract. So what, because that is, fairly disruptive in anyone's life, what the administration did was offer several options to the people who were impacted by that decision. And those options are outlined in the letter that you have received and have been handed out. So at any rate, if the non-renewal process, if the district has to take the non-renewal process, then the non-renewal process would look akin to what state law provides and what is in your policy. And that would necessitate a letter of non-renewal that says your contract is going away, your position is, you will not be offered the same position at the same amount of days that you had for 2017, 2018. The district is going to restructure. You'll have the opportunity to reapply for a position. But also in that non-renewal letter, which is driven by statute, you have a right to a hearing before the school board. And that hearing takes place once the hearing with a hearing officer and the administration has occurred. And the hearing is transcribed by a court reporter. The board gets what is called the record, which is really the transcript of the record. And at that point, there is a time scheduled for the attorney who represents the employee and the employee to come before the board, after you've read the transcript, come before the board and you make your decision solely based on the record that's before you. So, and I've probably left out a few steps in the non-renewal process, but basically the employee gets a non-renewal letter. It has to happen by April 15 for employees other than principals. And at that point, the timeline begins. There is a certain amount of time to request a hearing. It's outlined in the non-renewal letter. And then there's a certain amount of time that the district has to have the hearing, which is 30 days from the date of request, unless it's waived by the employee, unless that timeline is waived by the employee. And after that, the hearing is scheduled. There's a certain amount of time, 14 days, that the district has to present the employee with the documentation that will be used in the hearing and the list of witnesses. The hearing is set, the hearing is held, and then the court reporter gets through the process I just described about the record and the transcript and all of that, and the appearance before the school board. So that is the summary of the non-renewal process. The reason that, and I think we've alluded to this in the past, the reason your lawyers caution you about getting too involved in this particular process, not the restructuring, but in the process where you're going to have to rule on something and appear before you, is because the board is supposed to remain fair and impartial and make your decision for non-renewal based solely on the record. And so the record doesn't come before you until that whole non-renewal process has ended. So that's why you hear Ms. Turner and I say to you at times, we can, the information has to be limited because you have to be fair and impartial and not prejudge the case. Not that any of you would ever do that, but that's because the non-renewal process, as well as the termination process, is the same for contracted. It's the same process. Essentially, is the same, and that's why it's so important for the board to remain impartial and kind of go through that process. And so it's not always that, and I don't want to speak, for Dr. Murray, but it's not always that there's information being kept. Sometimes it's that, the lawyers are saying, no, you can't say all of this, So sometimes it's the lawyers who do that, and you'll find any school lawyer will caution you about that to not get, so that there can be any question about the impartiality.
I do have one question. I don't think it falls under, I'm getting into being partial, but as I read the letter, the only difference between the old positions and the new positions are the number of days worked. Is that correct? Because that's the really only thing that it says. We're going to go from, your position will go from 187 to 246.
Yes.
So that's the only.
Well, again, that's the premise of the non-renewal letter. There will be some in the department. There will be some things that will be different from a structural standpoint. But again, that's within the current structure of the curriculum department. So again, for example, there may be where there are 16 slots organized in a certain way, there may be 16 that are organized in another way. So when we talk about structure, it's things that are in the weeds that are a part of the internal processes that might be different in the change in structure.
Would it change our org chart?
No. Well, the organizational chart, no, it will not. There will be some recommendations for some additional things that we're proposing to do with some title funds that will add to our curriculum and our professional development department. Some things that we'll be talking more about, but that's in the same vein of building out our professional development department and our curriculum department. But just one, I'll give you an example. A couple of the positions will be repurposed for specifically to focus on literacy, even though they're not, they're the same position, but there's a specific focus that we feel like as a district that the data supports the fact that we need to focus on literacy. Our students are not reading on grade level. In many cases, we need students that are prepared to read, where we can look at the components of reading very deliberately and strategic at the early grade levels. And so a few of those positions will be dedicated specifically to literacy, which is not a part of the structure now. It's not a change of the organizational chart, but it is a change of the actual functions of the people within that department, which is not something which is allowed through the leadership is allowed to make those adjustments. So those kinds of things, when we talk about restructure, those are the kinds of things that we're looking at, not necessarily changing the organizational chart, but within the department, changing the function of what, and that will require a person, for example, in those positions that may have a certification in reading, that, again, those are some of the requirements that are already outlined in the job description that might be necessary for those specific positions. So those are some of that's just kind of an example of what we talk about when we talk about restructure, that are not, I guess, legal issues or organizational structure issues, but also within getting in the weeds, there will be some changes to better support our students.
Dr. Murray, what you just mentioned is not laid out in this letter, and my question is, has the reasons and need for this restructuring been discussed with the curriculum staff and their input brought into what is about to happen? Because it seems like they don't have any idea why this is happening.
Well, again, the reason for the restructure, the reason for the non-renewal letter is because of the change in days. That is the reason that we are issuing a non-renewal.
I understand that. My question is, has the curriculum staff been included in these conversations, and have their questions been answered at the district level about why this is happening? Because it sounds like from the public comments, they got this letter and it seems to have come out of the blue and they don't know why this is happening.
Well, that's unfortunate that is that's what, that is not the case. And when I go back to October, the reason I say that, I understand October there was a different board, but we communicated though, again, separate from the board, we communicated with the staff, because again, just to give you a prime example, and I hate to go into the weeds, but I think it's necessary so that we can see the issue. Last summer, there was some curriculum work that needed to be done. In that curriculum work, we partnered with a group to do curriculum work. There was nobody on staff. Everybody was off. And employees, when they're off, they're not obligated to do anything. That's their right. And so there was some specific curriculum work that needed to occur. There was some professional development. We did not have the capacity to require that work to be done. Of course, we have some people in the curriculum department that, volunteered or were paid for, $20 an hour or whatever to come back, but that was not a requirement. We can't function as a district not having people on staff to do the work of the district. So it's not I got you, or it's what's best for the district and for the students. We need a curriculum department that can work in the summer to provide curriculum work and provide professional development that we can know that are going to be there, that it's not a situation, and that's not anything personal to any person in the curriculum department, because I think they all are quality, and many of them, I'm sure, will be a part of the curriculum department if they choose to apply. But we did communicate back in October that we would be making this change because of this reason. We were very transparent. We met in this room for almost an hour to speak specifically to the fact that we were going to have to do this, and we actually met with the board. In the board meeting, we had, I think it was an executive session, where we spent about 2.5 hours with having conversation about the change, when the change was going to, why it was going to occur. So I don't think it would be fair to say that it was kind of dropped on staff, because we've said and we've been very consistent that we were going to make this change for this reason, so that we could have, support to provide the curriculum work in the summer that needed to be provided, so that we could train teachers in July, and that we had a workforce that was on contract. It's different to be on contract and to be paid a supplemental salary. And so again, the curriculum department was designed that way years ago. It worked well. We went away from it because of financial reasons, not because it was the best thing to do. Financially, we couldn't afford it anymore. We went away from it. It's not a best practice. And so again, that's what we're doing. And this is not only a recommendation from us, and this is also, we've been advised by several thought partners that this approach, having curriculum people to build capacity within the district, it keeps us from having to go outside and pay people to develop our curriculum. We're forced to do that when we don't have the capacity within the district. So the decision is made, again, in the spirit of trying to do what is best for the students. That is the only goal that I have in this position. And that's why the recommendation is for this non-renewal is coming before the board. And we met, again, we met last week, and we also entertained questions. There have been individuals that have come and talked with Attorney Shepherd in her office. So we've been open and very transparent about the process and our willingness to help in whatever way we can to ease this transition, because we don't want people stressed about a job. But again, the reality is this is a decision that needed to be made, and I think I would be negligent in not making that at least a recommendation, if knowing what we know about the work that needs to be done in the district.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about the non-renewal, and then the letter says it talks about resigning.
Mm-hmm.
Does non-renewal warrant the resignation, or if it's talking about the days?
That was the workaround that we came up with to prevent the non-renewal. In the past, and we've done restructuring several ways in the past, and we've done it, as you know, we've done it many times at many different schools. We reorganized the special ed department in 2012. We've reorganized and restructured several times. And the recurring issue that I hear is, even from administrators, is that even if they are retained, if they have aspirations of being a superintendent or an assistant superintendent or a principal, if they apply for other positions outside of the district or inside the district, there's a question, at least one question in the school area that says, have you ever been non-renewed? And they are compelled, they feel that they are compelled, and I agree, to say, yes, I've been non-renewed. And that is a red flag, and it doesn't matter, and I've had this explained to me several times, and so I've become sensitive to it. But it doesn't matter if once you have to check that box and say, yes, I've been non-renewed, then the administrators say it really doesn't matter if JPS gave me my job back or they placed me in another position. If I get that non-renewal letter and I have to check that I've been non-renewed, it still diminishes, or to them it diminishes their chance for success in a career outside of the district. So this was just an effort to say, if you resign prior to the non-renewal, you won't receive a non-renewal letter, and that would take away the sting of the non-renewal. So it was just an attempt to blunt that.
And one additional question. The resignation is effective May 25th, and you talked about the work that the curriculum office, the work that they're providing now. Would that work be changed, or And the only reason I'm asking, because it's very crucial right now, I mean, it's almost testing time, and I want the curriculum office to be working on curriculum and, working with our students, but to put this burden on them at this time, like, is that feasible to do that right now? And was there a strategic plan in place of what should happen from now until this May 25th date?
As I understood it, the May 25th date is the day that their contract ends. And in the meeting, the expectation was communicated to them that they were to continue to work as they were doing prior to receiving any of this news. And that's normally the expectation in any restructuring or in any non-renewal. So I think that Dr. Murray can probably speak more to the time frame.
Yes, and again, the expectation is that we continue, to work through our contract, but also the timeline, because we will start, the plan is to start the process. We posted the position, and to begin to have some of the employees to reapply and to get them back on staff in those positions. And it's critical that this is recruitment time. We want the best and brightest in our district, in other districts across the country. And so in that, this is the window of time when people are looking for jobs. They get contracted in March. So we wanted to open the positions up so that we would have an opportunity to be able to recruit the best. Some of our staff, look to leave and go to other places for other opportunities. So we wanted to make this opportunity available for those who are in the department who want to stay, so that again we can move the work forward this summer, and then we can start that, and that group will be poised to start back in July 1. The ones that are contracted, as opposed to coming back in August, they would be coming back in July.
With the increase in days and the number of work days in the contract by about 33%, would there be a corresponding increase in salary?
Not a corresponding, but there will be an increase. Typically, and traditionally, and again, again, I know this is a new board, but when you come to central office, I don't think that any person that left a school building that has come to central office historically, since this district has been in place, has ever gotten per diem. And that's per diem is day for day. And I just can speak for myself. When I left Murrah as a principal, came to central office, my per diem, I went to more days but made a lot less money per day. But that is a part of making a decision to come to central office. So there will be an increase. We're proposing a $3,000 increase for those on top of what they already have, $3,000 increase for those that are here. For example, if you're in the curriculum office now, you make $58,000. Then you would, if we interview and you are one of the chosen specialists, area supervisors, then you would get an additional $3,000, which is not per diem, but it is a significant increase, and it's consistent with the $6,000 that I think they got years ago. It was when they got a $6,000 supplement. So we were trying to be very fair and not just go back, because we understand it's additional work, but it will not be per diem, but it will be an increase. And we did communicate that on Friday to the staff.
I have a quick question. When any employee resigns, is it always that they have to reapply? If there's a change or restructuring, do they always have to reapply?
I'm not sure. I'd have to check with.
Most of the time, yes, sir.
Okay, is there a workaround for that?
Everybody had to.
Can you come to the? I'm sorry.
Hill.
Mm-hmm.
And we all had to reapply. I'm sorry. Normally in the school setting, if there's a restructuring, then those positions are posted. It's up to the principals to re-interview, and once he or she interviews, then they make the selection. There's a selection process. A committee is chosen, and the selection process is done.
No, the question is, for the actual application, going back in, having to go through the entire application process, is that
I think
required?
with the letters that were given, I think if they stated on the letters that they would like to, I think something on the letter about, I can't remember the wording. Attorney Shepherd, can you help me with
If
something?
they wanted
on
to
the-
apply for the position.
That's right. We will accept that letter, but if, others will have to apply. But if the current employees want to reapply, we would use that letter to state that they want to reapply, and then that letter would be given to the supervisors.
So they would not have to go back through the entire
No,
application?
they wouldn't have to complete an application process and all of that. They would just need to submit that letter in, and we'll make sure that that letter goes to the area superintendents, and then from there. They can review the files. They can come into HR. We can give them the files to review.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry. Sorry for misunderstanding the question at first.
So will there be an interview process?
Yes.
They will go through an interview process, but no application process?
No, I'm saying, what she's basically said, we have a mechanism for a change of status. So I think it's just a technical type thing. Though, if they're in the district, to keep them from having to spend 2 hours putting another application in, they would just, through the letter, they check off that I want to reapply. We communicate that. If they're hired in that position, we just simply do a change of status, because they would be rehired into that position, or some kind of technical way we could work through that without them having to go back through an application like a person coming from a Madison or a Brandon or out of state.
And my last question, will all of this be completed prior to contracts going out?
Yes. Yes, we anticipate, well, this process is actually already, the posting has already been made. We anticipate moving forward with the process, giving, of course, the staff members the opportunity to, go through the due process hearing if they choose to do that again, or reapply. I encourage them to reapply. Again, it's very transparent. We have some great people, great minds who we think will do an outstanding job. It wasn't about the people. It's about it wasn't a personal thing with the people. It's about making sure that we have the structure and the capacity so that we can get the work done. And so again, we do encourage all of them to apply if they're interested in the position. Some will make the decision that that's not what they want to do. Others that want to do that, are interested in that, we encourage them to apply.
Is there a due date when these letters are to be returned?
It was Monday.
Okay, didn't say that on the letter.
We told them at the meeting.
So is this past Monday?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
So, are we finished with that discussion? Well, thank you. That closes our public comments, remarks. Thank you. I'm trying to read. Reading the old agenda. Where does it say? Where does it say? Are we there already? We didn't do schools, and we're not doing that? Has the agenda? I need a current board agenda. A current board agenda, thank you. Okay. Okey-doke, item 9. Information action, approval of financial report. Ms. Miller.
Thank you, Dr. Hairston, Dr. Murray, members of the board. I present to you the monthly financial report for the month ended January 31st, 2018. This report, of course, includes your statement of fund balance, your budget status report, also the report of the bank accounts as currently being reconciled within the timeline that's given, and also your cash flow report for district maintenance.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. We received your report prior to the meeting in writing. Do I hear comments or questions from the board? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the monthly financial report?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the monthly financial report has been approved. Thank you, Ms. Miller.
Thank you.
Item B, approval of revisions and edits to the corrective action plan. Dr. Merritt.
All right. Good evening, Dr. Hairston, Board of Trustees, Dr. Murray. And you have a recently revised one, CAP, uploaded this afternoon. Just in general, we did complete all edits and revisions. As it relates to the content, those revisions, nothing changed in content that was uploaded on Friday, particularly the standards that changed in content, that we added some additional content to, were Standard 20, which deals with the instructional management system, as well as Standard 20.2, which deals with the multi-tiered systems of support. Other than that, it was just some other revisions, or what we call global edits, in terms of using some things, and we adjusted some timelines. And I will provide an updated document with the standards, with the timelines on it, when we expect, when we will request MDE to come out and clear. Program offices at the MDE have been very supportive. Some worked with us over the weekend to just make sure that we had all of the necessary edits and revisions needed. That's pretty much it. I'll entertain any questions that you all may have as it relates to the corrective action plan.
Regarding the changes that you made on Standard 20 that were uploaded today, can you share with us what those changes were?
They were the same, Dr. Hairston, that were in there on Friday.
Friday?
Yes, ma'am. And basically, what was requested that we go back and do is just really focus in on how we will impact the student in terms of some things. And so 2 things that we added, we talked about our summer institute, as well as still seeking in which schools who are in school improvement have the opportunity to seek external support and professional development in order to help train teachers in order to make an impact on student achievement. So those were 2 things that were added in there.
Help me understand that a little bit more. So schools will have the authority to contract with others to come in and provide professional development on a school-by-school basis?
That was an example, but yes, ma'am. Schools who are in school improvement, one of the turnaround principles is Principle 8.1. When they have these meetings with their school leadership teams as well as stakeholders, they do have the right, once they present the data to their school level team and stakeholders, if the decision is made that they seek some external support due to whatever deficiencies or issues they may have at their school, if it's professional development is determined is what the need is, they have that right through that school improvement process to earmark their money, or in their school-wide plan to earmark their funds where they need the support.
Will there be any oversight of that? Do they have to go through their?
Yes, ma'am. So we will have to RFP it, and I think Dr. Murray has it on his radar to talk about some evaluation of how we do that. Of course, it's required, but making it a more rigorous process as what's been recommended to us by the Council of Great City Schools. And so there is a process that it will go through, and it has to be board approved.
Yes, and this, again, just on that note, we've been advised we need to make sure that schools are at the table with these decisions, that principals and building level stakeholders actually have a say-so in who is coming into their buildings and providing support. So that is something we've been really working hard to make sure that we have. Traditionally, we've had, we've gone through the RFP process. There's been some involvement with administrators and central office level, school level, but we need to be very deliberate about making sure that school level principals and stakeholders are a part of that selection process. We've received some guidance, not only from through School Improvement Office, but as a part of our school at risk conversations, we've been advised to make sure that that is present and has been documented, that we're doing that, giving those schools that opportunity.
So the schools can request some professional development, but it'll still come through their central office leadership.
Well, they have to issue a RFP. Well, it's cleaner to have an RFP process, and so they have.
Which comes from this.
Yes. Well, the schools will help frame the RFP. We'll submit the RFP, and then of course those individuals will go through the scoring process, which they will be a part of, and then ultimately, of course, we have to bring that to the board for approval. But it might be, as opposed to a major district-wide initiative where we have one person doing multiple schools, several schools may see the need to use different individuals, and so we have to honor that input when we bring that process forward.
And we just follow the procurement process as outlined in state law.
Okay. Well, board, do I hear any remarks regarding our approval of this?
I do have a question before remarks. Dr. Mayer, on standard 17.2, there's a sub-bullet on the parent-teacher conference meetings. I believe typically it's 3 parent meetings are required for pre-K.
Yes, sir.
But we may make adjustments this year. As we all know, our kids were in school on Monday. It says that we will document alternative means of having these communications. I just wanted to hear how we plan on documenting that the conferences happened.
Yes, sir. So Dr. Murray has presented that option to the assistant superintendents. 17.1 kindergarten, 2 parent-teacher conferences are required, and with pre-K, there are 3. So what was suggested in our meeting with the MDE is that we can use a variety of ways. What we need to ensure is that it's documented that we have communicated with the parent, whether that's over the phone, we can use technology, but as long as we, in the guidelines, it communicates, as long as we communicate the progress of the student and document it and the parent is aware of it, of the documentation, how we document it, that we can document that 3rd conference as we see fit. We were given flexibility, whereas the parent does not physically have to come to the school for that conference. Mm-hmm. So.
Well, right now I'm in a state of unreadiness to approve these revisions. We've already discussed the need to review some board policies as to how they impact this cap. We need an updated timeline, as I understand from this conversation tonight. And I need to reiterate again that this is a new board, and I realize that the organizational chart under which we're currently operating was approved by the previous board. And here again, this board is responsible for this cap, the execution of that organizational chart, and I'm just very uncomfortable with voting approval of this. In fact, I imagine I would vote against it if we call it for a vote. This isn't due to MDE until Friday. I think the board has an opportunity to think further on this and hold a special meeting to approve this cap. But I will yield to my board members to see what their pleasure is.
If there was a need for an additional board meeting to consider this, perhaps we could do it in addition with the consideration of the payroll issues with classified staff when we potentially reconvene at the end of this week.
That is what I'm thinking will already be convene for a work session, but we could notice a special session to give some time to get some greater clarity, for me at least, on these three issues. I am in a state of unreadiness, and I don't think it would take a half-hour posted meeting, special meeting. And then, as you say, then we could also hear if they've had any luck in getting something in writing from the other entities involved regarding payroll. Well, do I hear any motion regarding this item 9B?
Before we go there, could I make some comments
Sure.
on the process? One thing I do want to recognize is, Dr. Merritt, the work that you've been doing and your teams and the district has been doing with the Department of Education. We've gotten feedback about how involved the department has been, how helpful the department has been, how collaborative it's been. And I think it's important that we recognize that the process has been one that has been one towards developing the district, putting us in a place to succeed. I also, so I wanted to make sure that we made those comments here tonight, and I think that as we consider the next action, that we recognize that work. I guess, Dr. Harrison, one question I would have is, what additional work should we be doing between now and the meeting? Because we do have a Friday deadline, and I want to honor that as a board. Again, there's been a lot of work that's been going in, not just by the district, but outside parties.
Well, as I said earlier, for me, I need time now to go back and read it as it relates to the board revisions and what we've said in there as to how we're going to handle board revisions. It might just be a tweak of the language. I don't know.
So, and that will help me. So do we need to look at standard 1? Is that one that you all will, so we can have more of a focus and we'll know what to do on this end in order to support you in that process?
Well, it goes back to what are the things that are most time sensitive and I guess need to be addressed. And I just need to go back and read the language. If we said we're going to review A and B in January and we didn't do it, I don't want that language to be in there. I have to go back now that I have learned so much to see what that means in reality. That's all. And then you mentioned you're going to do an updated timeline. I'd like to see the updated timeline that is going to accompany the CAP. Is that correct?
The timelines are accurate, and here it's just the cheat sheet that I provided you all. That's the one pager that I will go back and update. But the timelines that are reflected in this document are accurate.
Correct. Okay, well, that would just help me, your cheat sheet.
Yes, ma'am.
And then I just have uneasiness about the org chart. You know, we were required to reread and approve the test security plan. And what was told to me, it's because you're a new board, and so this board has to approve it. So I think our organizational chart is, and particularly considering such turmoil going on in the district right now, it's a really important thing that we need to understand. I need to understand the purpose, the vision, the goals, how it, and what is being said.
So that would be with standard 20, I believe.
Standard 20, right.
And it is referenced in standard 1 as well.
Mm-hmm. You know, you tell me, say, Doc, what I'm understanding. This is what needs to be done.
Can we specifically, so we can target the organizational, is it in the language that's in the, there's not an actual org chart in the CAP, so is it just the language around the organizational chart? Because I think it...
Well, no, the CAP mentions 4 times what you're going to do with the organizational chart. There are 4 places in the CAP where it specifically mentions page 12, page 14, page 194, and page 200. You say, review and if necessary, update the organizational chart Page 14, revised organizational chart. Page 194, organizational chart. Page 200, revised organizational structure. That board is no longer vested in any of this. We are the board now that's putting our name on this. I just need more time to understand what it is, why it looks like it looks, where did it come from. Can we give some feedback? Who makes those decisions? It's my understanding from board policy that the board approves any major changes in our organizational structure. This is a major change. You don't get much more major in a school district than changing the curriculum and instruction department. I'm very uncomfortable. Much as I love and respect the previous board, they are not the board. We are the board. I can't defend that. So that's my concern. And I think it could, I too am totally committed to meeting our deadline. I think it can be done. If the organizational chart isn't part of the CAP, then I still feel an unreadiness that we're operating under an organizational chart that this board had nothing to do with. Does that not bother anybody else? And we had to reapprove the test security. Why don't we have to reapprove the whole organization of the district? I don't know. Help me understand.
I think certainly, Dr. Hairston, if I may take a stab at it, I think certainly the board can reapprove the organizational chart, but I also think it has to be brought to the board. You know, that's what the board wants to do. The board can, but I think it has to be brought to the board through the administration as a recommendation. With regards to some of the references to the organizational chart in the CAP, some of the places that I'm seeing it, like for Standard 20, is as an evaluation criteria. To see if the strategies that we say we're going to do or that we've devised for correction are actually working. We do the strategy, and one of the ways to evaluate the strategies is, you know, a revised organizational chart, if there needs to be one. So,
well, my question, page 14, a plan is being developed to restructure all programs, offices, and departments. Does the board know what the plan is? Has the board ever been presented the plan?
I'm not sure if the board,
this
board,
current
right,
board that is responsible for this document.
And I understand that, and I appreciate that. I'm not certain if this board has been presented at this time with all of the plans for restructuring the department or any departments. I think, just from my lawyer side of me and not, you know, the educator, which I'm not, but I think the district is in the process of looking at different documents and awaiting reports that it expects to receive about strategic placement and restructuring and how the district ought to look. And so I don't know if that's a steady, concrete movement or if it's fluid as reports come into the district, if that makes any sense at all.
Well, to your point, one of my concerns was why are we doing these major reorganization and restructure without benefit of the Council of Great City Schools? I mean, they've spent time here, they've got recommendations. They specifically said that the organization charts currently we're operating under are not up to standard. They are not of high quality. They don't do what we need to do. They said that. So why are we submitting a plan, a CAP, that embraces that? Why aren't we being more clear that
I can speak to that, we are considering recommendations of the council. The structure that we're moving to, or the approach that we're taking, is a recommendation directly from the Council of Great City Schools. They have recommended to us that we need to build capacity within our district and do our own curriculum documents. They have said that consistently, that we have good people, we have strong curriculum folk, but we should not, have to farm out that kind of work. We can't do that. We can't not do that unless we have people that work year round. So those are, it's indirectly the decisions that are being made, and it's not just the council. Other people that we've talked to have recommended that we build capacity within our district to do curriculum work. And in order to do that, you have to have a fluid department that works year round. So the structure is designed around the recommendations that not only we as professionals have seen, but also through outside recommendations that have come from multiple areas as it relates to the curriculum structure. So again, and in the evaluation, I guess the spirit of the evaluation is for this board to have the opportunity to continuously look at and approve or make recommendations on organizational structural concerns that they might have. The revision part of that, I think, is always available. If there are recommendations, we are poised to take that into consideration and of course move forward with the will of the board. But some things that professionally that we look at that are necessary, we try to make that work within the current structure. So the organizational structure that was approved just recently was the only difference in the last organizational chart was the separation of the way we did the areas. Everything else has consistently been a part of our structure, the standard structure of districts across the country. But so that was the change, the major change that the former board approved was the structure of moving to area. To move into areas as opposed to divisions, which was a recommendation that came from the Mississippi School Board Association.
But Dr. Merritt, you said that the current organizational chart that the previous board approved does what the Council of Great City Schools recommended. I don't see how that's possible. They haven't given their final report. The org chart hadn't changed. The same org chart that's affiliated with this document is what the previous board approved in April. And I don't understand how what happened in April was the same thing that Council of Great City Schools said wasn't as strong, and they recommended something else. I don't understand that.
No, well, a point of clarity there. The curriculum department, if you look at the organizational chart, the curriculum department has, there's a person that's over the curriculum department, then there is the executive director of curriculum, and then there are curriculum specialists. There's several. So that's the structure of the department. So in that, the way that department operates is kind of, in the number, for example, the number of days, the structure of the department is not necessarily changing and moving one person, out of that structure. The structure remains the same when you look at the chart. But what's different is the functions of the department. That is what we are changing, and what has been recommended by the council and others, that what those people do and how they work is where the differences are. Not the actual structure or the organization of the chart, but actually what those people do, the functions, the day-to-day functions that they do within the department, the kind of work that they do within the department, how you have those departments organized and who's working with what area, what content area. Those kinds of things are what we talk about when we say those are recommendations from the council.
And if I don't muddy the waters too much, so what the recommendation is, Dr. Harrison, so for example, now you have the curriculum department and you have the multi-tier systems of support that deal with tiers 2 and 3, and the curriculum department that deals with tier 1. So it's pretty much what the language that's mentioned in here is aligning the instructional offices. So you have the curriculum department which is your Tier 1 instruction. You're bringing the multi-tiered systems of support offices, which is tiers 2 and 3, along with exceptional education, which is a very important instructional component in our district, aligning those under one umbrella so that you can really impact the instructional process so that it's not so much siloed as it is now. It's just aligning the instructional processes within the curriculum and instruction office, if that makes sense.
Dr. Harrison, can I make a recommendation? I hear a reluctance to approve the cap tonight. I know we have a work session on Thursday. Maybe what we could do is notice that as a part of that as an action, as a meeting where we can take action. That'll give us time, and maybe we can get any additional questions that we've got to Dr. Murray and his team, and then have those reviewed in public session on Thursday.
And if it's permissible, I would like to share with the board the vision for the department and how that actually would look within that structure, to actually show the board what we envision for the department within the structure. So if we have time to do that,
that would be very helpful. Anything you could put in writing to expedite, so that the board can have something in writing to read, so that we will understand the administration's vision. Is that a motion, Dr. Sivak?
Yes, I'll make a motion to table the approval of the cap and to notice a public meeting on Thursday. I think we would, as far as the time, probably do it at 12 o'clock. That's at lunch hour. That's a good time to notice that.
Second.
It's been moved and second to table the approval of the cap until we notice a special board meeting on Thursday, February 22nd at 12 noon. Do I hear? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, let the record show. Thank you, board. Thank you, Dr. Murray. Dr. Merritt. Item 10, consent agenda items, finance. Ms. Miller, approval of disbursements for account payable.
Thank you, Dr. Harrison, Dr. Murray, members of the board. I present to you consent agenda items finance, if I may, all three, and if we can take them that way. Item A is approval of disbursements and accounts payable and activity fund claims for January 27th through February 9th, 2018. Item B is a recommendation to dispose of surplus property. And item C is the approval to reject all bidders for RFP 2017-17, which is for digital full color production printing system.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. It's so interesting to see an approval to reject all bidders. Please tell me why we rejected some.
We issued an RFP for vendors to provide us a full production system to replace a system in our graphic arts department that is about 12 years old. And when the bidders responded, we asked for pricing based on a flat 350,000 copies per year, but also an overage amount. Neither bidder responded clearly. And so even with additional clarification questions from them, we still don't feel as though we've gotten what we needed to make sure that we make a decision. So that in this practice, we felt it best to reject, and then we will rebid, and hopefully now our bidders will understand exactly what we're asking for so that we can make a clear recommendation.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion to consider all three items together and approve?
I move that we approve the three consent agenda items as presented under finance.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
It's been moved and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, the motion has moved. Thank you. Been approved. Item 11, consent agenda items, personnel. Ms. Miller.
Yes, again, thank you. Dr. Harrison, members of the board, the administration is requesting approval to award RFP 27-12 for lead partner for teacher support to Schoolhouse 21.
Okay, do we hear any questions from Ms. Miller regarding this particular RFP? Oh, I have my first question. Is this the only RFP we received? I mean, the only response to this RFP we received?
No, ma'am. We had two responders. Let me get to. There was, I apologize, normally I have both of them.
PCG.
PCG, out of New York, and it was extremely over our budget.
Okay.
We, if you, I'm not sure if you recall, this is the second time that we bid this, because again, we only had one responder at that time, and it was PCG. Again, it was exceeding our budget. This project will be supported with Title II dollars, and so we have a very narrow window of a budget, and so we have to remain within that budget. So, but budget wasn't only the driving factor here. Of course, we looked at the track record that we have and that we found with this organization, and also we're putting some procedures in place that we feel we will be able to effectively evaluate this system and how this company has performed for us. Again, we're one of the larger ones, and to look at 200 plus limited service teachers that we would love to get certified through our process and then have them commit to a 3-year contract with this district is one that we have done something of this nature before. We've never really required people to contract with us. We've never really evaluated. So we think that this process will be much more stringent in this instance.
Thank you.
Is the commitment to a 3-year contract or to a 2-year agreement to remain as teachers in the district, which is what I see at least in the summary?
I said 3. I wanted 3.
We started out with 3, but we wanted to be consistent with
Teach for America.
Teach for America, so we wouldn't lose.
I apologize. That's kind of where I wanted to go.
Mm-hmm.
For good reason.
Mm-hmm.
And so have we ever contracted with this group before?
We have not. This is a new company that we have not contracted with in the past, but we did, we received from them as a part of the RFP some references that they gave us, but then I asked for additional ones because I wanted to reach out and talk to people myself that were not necessarily folks that were part of the RFP process. So I actually called all the ones that I've listed in the executive summary and spoken to those folks myself.
And how many people are, I only saw one name on the company. Is this the same person doing all this professional development?
No, ma'am, she has a team.
But she didn't share who her team is? We don't know who she's bringing into the building?
I don't, but we will have all of their evaluation and all of their resumes, and I'll make sure we furnish that to the board members as well. I will make sure Dr. McClendon provides that with us if this is approved tonight. But one of the things that we really liked about this company is that they offer a multitude of methods to get to work through teachers. There's this 10-month boot camp, there's the face-to-face, there's online. So we were very impressed with that process because, you know, we understand adult learners learn differently, and so they gave us a bunch of options. But I will request tonight, or first thing in the morning, from Dr. McClendon a list of those principals in her organization and forward those resumes to you.
Thank you. That'd be very helpful. What's the cost of this 2-year contract?
It's $599 per person. And so what we wanted to do was use a very small group of individuals at first, limited to about 20 people, and then see how the progress works before we expand. Again, this is Title II money. We will, of course, be cognizant of the budget, but that is, again, why we were asking for any participant to give us a 2-year contract or 2-year agreement to teach in the district in order to recoup, if it were, some of these funds.
And do you know what their timeline is? I didn't understand. When's the next time the practice is being administered? How many times? Is it likely that folk will have an opportunity to take it and pass it within this 2-year
Oh, yes, ma'am.
contract period?
Yes, ma'am. I'm not certain how often the praxis is given, but yes, there's certainly time for them to take that. What we intend to target are those limited service teachers who are within 10 points or so of passing. So that what this company will do will help us evaluate where they are based on their scores to see what targeted areas they have. So if there is a praxis coming up, for example, the next couple of months, then they will get them ready if you have one person that needs, a little bit of math. But then you may have somebody that needs to go through that 10-month boot camp to see where they may need a little bit more extensive help. So it's a process, and we'll look at each individual before we allow them to participate in this, where they are in their licensing process, before we certainly will hope to get those folks that we can get that are very, very close to practice and just need that extra little push to get over.
What's their success rate?
In the executive summary, I provided the information that I gathered from the school districts that I spoke with. Hinds County had, let me get to my page, I'm sorry. So Hinds County in August had 34 enrolled in the program, and 7 have already passed Praxis 1 or 2, and then the other are preparing for Praxis 1. East Central Community College had 12 students that were enrolled in May, and 3 have already tested out in July, 4 tested out in October, and 5 are still enrolled. They are in the boot camp, the 10-month program. Then East Kemper School District had 4, and they all have 4 in April, and they all tested out in December. So I was really excited about the fact that it wasn't taking a year. It was looking like, on average, 4 or 5 months, and we could see where folks were.
So in these numbers, the people enrolled, are they all testing?
Yes, that is a requirement.
Testing. So in Hinds County, 34 enrolled, 7 passed, and the 27 failed?
No, 27 are still in the process of taking.
That's what I'm.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So are they? So the 34 number does not represent individuals that are necessarily taking the practice. They're just in process.
Right, in the process. I'm sorry.
And how old is the company?
They are. So they were established, I believe. Let me look. I'm actually not sure.
Yep, they're relative. I'm not sure exactly. They're relatively young.
Yeah, I think they're very young.
Between 3, maybe
3 and 5 years.
3 to 5 years, maybe.
Thank you.
How will our teachers in need of this work, will they be required to participate? I mean, how do...
So we anticipate a application type process. So allow those individuals who are interested in needing this additional help, provide us with their educational information and also their praxis scores, where they are in the process. And then this company will work with the instructional group and the administrators to identify those folks who we think, or who they think, not me, are most likely to pass. And then at that point, then we will work with that first cohort, see where they are in the process, how long it takes, measure them, monitor them, and then move forward. I anticipate making, after this first 20, that we come back to the board and report where those 20 are in the process before we approve the next cohort. Because what we don't want is 100 people sitting out there being just in the process and we can't see the end in sight. The goal is to get them certified this year so they can be ready to contract with us and teach whatever day school starts in August.
So the first 20?
Yes, ma'am.
To be ready by August?
Yes, that's
and
the
then
goal.
You'll start another 20 in September?
Yes, ma'am.
To reach 200 over?
Or however many we can get that we can get certified. We know that we have over 100 limited service teachers who have already expressed interest and said that they need help. They just need that extra push. And what we found is that it's expensive for an individual to continue to pay out of pocket, and they keep taking the test and they miss it by 1 point and take it again and miss it by 1 point, and then they're limited service teachers. And for us, limited service teachers without a license make $85 a day. So it's an incentive for them. It's a financial incentive, and it's we think a benefit, and we think actually a recruiting tool for folks to know that we have a program that will assist you if you're selected and if you're at a certain point and if you're willing to give us the 2-year commitment to work for this district.
I have a question. You said they've been in business for about 3 to 5 years. Do they have any, are these the only 3 schools that they've worked with?
No, those are the only 3 schools that I contacted. There are other references. I think it's included in your board materials. LaFleur County, there are a couple of other school districts. But I tend to kind of say, give me somebody I can talk to other than who you provided in your RFP. So there are other school districts. And there was one other school district, I can't remember who it was, but I could not reach the person. So by the time the board material was due.
Okay, I was just looking for the historical data on the success rate.
And we will make sure, I think it will be a feather in their cap if they can move us and make sure that we are successful. And I'm positive they will. And if they're not, then we, of course, during the evaluation period, will make a recommendation. We've done this in the past with other groups that have not been as very successful at all. But we think, and what we've talked to the organizations that I spoke with and that the team looked at, we feel like this is giving us the best opportunity at this point, especially for the responders. I think it was interesting to note that when we bid it for the second time, we still only received 2 responses.
So I think we approved continuing ed for teachers early. Computer software program.
Frontline.
That's it.
Yeah.
So,
Frontline, that's professional development.
Mm-hmm.
So does that coincide with this? Does it help in terms of the practice?
No, ma'am. What Frontline does is it takes a teacher or actually any employee in the district. And so let me take an applicant, for example. So a teacher applicant would apply, and they would have to answer a series of questions about classroom management, all types of things. And so once that person is through the system and are hired, then the Frontline system develops a professional development program, as it were, for them to follow. So this gives them an opportunity that says to this principal who hires this teacher may need a little assistance in classroom management, and here are the courses that are in Frontline for them to take. So the Frontline system actually helps us, I think, on the back side of once somebody's employed, and I will say this, it's certified and classified employees, and it gives them an opportunity to get the professional development that will help them maintain their certification. Many of the classes that Dr. Armstrong has and the Frontline system has will give teachers those credits that they need to maintain their system, their certification, and actually at no cost, where sometimes teachers will have to go out to other entities, pay out of pocket to receive those hours that they need.
Thank you.
I see the practice participant. It said their overall pass rate is 86%, but there are no years on here. So do you know if this one is 1 year?
I will find out.
Or?
Could we structure, if this RFP is approved, we're not approving a contract tonight with them. Would there be a subsequent contract that would come before the board, or is then it?
This is it. Yes, sir.
Could we put some type of payment for success, or set a threshold to guarantee payment, or
I'll have to defer to the attorneys to help me on that.
You could ask for it, but if it was not a condition or a requirement in the RFP, then my guess is it was not built into essentially the offer that they made. So, kind of just basic contract law, we made an offer, they accepted the terms of our offer, now we're going back with kind of a counter offer which they may accept or not accept. So of course the board can approve it contingent or conditionally, but if that was not written as part of the proposal, then it would just be up to them as to whether or not they would be willing to accept an arrangement like that.
And I think one of the things that we anticipated by keeping the initial group very small was that that was a manageable group that we could evaluate to see their success before we recommend that they go to the next step. So that was the concept behind that we keep the initial group very, very small, that we could put our hands on it, we could monitor it, we require them to give us monitoring information on where our folks are in the process before we move forward with a full-fledged academy, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
I do like that idea, though, Dr. Sivak. I mean, everybody else gets zinged if they don't meet adequate progress. So just paying out money and to get no results, I'm very uncomfortable with that. We need some kind of guarantee.
I'd suggest in general that we do need to consider that. That's something the Council of Great City Schools brought to our attention, the need for accountability clauses in our contracts in the future, and it needs to be something that we consider as a policy for the board for RFPs in the future. It seems to me that right now, at least as far as an initial effort to get these teachers who are close to being certified within 10 points or so of being able to pass the praxis, the more certified teachers we can get, the better. It doesn't strike me that the price point is particularly high, and at least with the initial cohort of 20 students and Title II funds available to fund it, that I don't see a major drawback in at least initiating this effort.
I do appreciate that. So this contract is just for 20 teachers or for 200 teachers?
Well, it's for however many we put in the process that we can afford. And so what we wanted to do was make sure that we started small, but then also work along with the Title II funds that are available. Because again, what I've learned through going through this most recent training with Title and looking at federal dollars, all of this is tied to outcomes. Mm-hmm. And everything has to be justified as to what you did it work, how did it benefit the district and ultimately the students. So at this process, especially since it's now a part of the HR piece, it is paramount importance to me, especially because I'm very, very sensitive to the use of federal dollars to make sure that we get what we exactly are looking for.
Do we have any contractors that we used previously that were really successful?
No, ma'am. We've had two over the last 2 years, and quite honestly, between the two that started in 15-16 and 16-17, we have probably had less than 10 that actually went through the process.
And so what would be the difference between those contractors and this one?
We are actually doing a different selection criteria. That when we did it before, teachers just kind of volunteered. There was no effort to look at where they were in the process. There was no real incentive for them to continue in the process. They could drop out if they wanted to. They could come if they didn't. So we think that the promise of a contract at the end of this will motivate folks, as well as the fact that we're going to be a lot more selective, and as opposed to people just signing up, it will be people that are selected.
Yes, and what we found in the past is sometimes we take people through the training and they wouldn't even test. And so as a part, we learned from that, we'd invest in the training, but for whatever reason, it may have been financial, or whatever, but there was no requirement. So we've been very strategic about making sure that we choose the right people. That's the key. Those that are close, statistically close enough to be successful with some support. And then we provide that support for them. and the training. And we're realistic about how much time it will take, whether we put them into a extended program or fast track, whatever. But again, we feel confident that this process will work for us with the number of teachers we have that need to be certified.
So our internal process in selecting teachers has changed. But I guess I'm looking for the difference. So I'm trying to make comparables between failing groups in the district. I'm trying to ensure that this group is going to be successful. And there's nothing that sort of indicates that it will based off of the information that we've been given. And so I'm looking.
Well, I think, and I certainly appreciate that. I think that it is a little difficult when you are instructing folks to say, I guarantee that these people will pass the test. I think it's somewhat like students when you teach them and there's no guarantee. But we will, if we see that this process is not working, between the evaluations from the participants, this doesn't work for me, this does not help me, as well as the process of how many are successful, I think at that point that gives us an evaluation process that we feel comfortable before moving forward to even recommend to the board that we continue.
So are you suggesting a timeline when you would make this assessment and then come back to the board?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. When we look at where the 20 are and we will know what track they are prescribed, then we will be able, if there's a person that says, I just need this little help and I'm going to take the next praxis in May, if we know that that person passed, then that's one, that we move on. If we know one that we think is very close, but they need to have a 3-month process, so they're going to take the class in, July, we'll have to track them individually. And I think we'll do a much closer job of making sure that we keep our eye on this process. I think, much better than we did in the past.
And we are required, because these are title dollars, we are required to review the programs, and we have to demonstrate that these dollars are being utilized effectively. So, of course, the board would definitely want to know that we're being successful, but we have an obligation also, because we're using Title II dollars, to make sure that we're getting value for the dollars that we're spending.
And I think that's my concern, is that the money that we spend here needs to be productive. And again, I'm not looking for a guarantee, but I am looking for a good track record. I mean, an excellent track record, actually. And it seems like we've had 2 failing contractors, part our fault. And now we have another one that's being brought before us. We've changed some things. But I don't know if that's enough for me to say that this is the right company and this is going to work. And I mean, we are constantly approving contracts and we're constantly purchasing things, and we're not getting enough information on what's effective. And that's become a real problem for me.
And I think this is our attempt to make sure that you are going to get that information. And so, other than the fact that we issued an RFP and it was issued twice and we only had 2 companies, I think that speaks to the fact that there are not a lot of folks out there that can make this kind of work happen. And so at this point, this was, our effort to make sure that we try to do something instead of continuing to start the school year with hundreds of unlicensed teachers. Just as an assistance to them and also to us ultimately, is that we'll have certified teachers in front of our students. And I can understand the hesitancy on perhaps their track record, but until they try, we won't know. And so I can pledge to you that we will keep the board updated. We will monitor this process much more closely than we have in the past before we move forward with anything else. And again, if they don't work, we'll have to do something else. But I think that it is our responsibility to do everything we can to get certified teachers in this district. And this is one way that we know if we have a teacher that has stayed with us for $85 a day for a year, then they are pretty much committed to this district, and we want to try to help them get certified so they will remain. I think it's the first pay period for limited service teachers was for 4 days. So anybody who will stay with us that got paid the first time for 4 days, I think they're really committed. So this is our attempt to make sure that we help those teachers that want to help our students.
Could we approve it with a circuit breaker where you take that small group, the 20, and we could set the threshold? Or if we didn't hit the threshold, we shut it off.
Yeah, that was similar to my question. Are we asking for 20 or are we asking for 200? Is the contract for 20 or 200? I'd feel way more comfortable with the contract for 20.
And this process could be 10 months because they have a 10-month program, correct?
Depending on who's selected and where they are in the process.
Right, and any of this 20 could wind up in a 10-month program.
But again, that selection of who's selected is on the administration. So we can certainly select someone who needs a 10-month program, or we can select someone who needs a 4-month program. So I think it's all in the selection criteria, and especially given the comments tonight, we certainly, someone that's in a 10-month process or that would need to go to the boot camp probably is more than likely outside of the 10 points needed to get to praxis. So they would not be in the selection of the first 20 anyway. Where we would go is those people who don't need 10 months because we don't have 10 months to give. Yeah. So our process would be a little bit different.
Yeah, and I think we have some of those other districts that are smaller, don't have, they don't have the luxury, I guess, that we have with the pool. So if we have 220 or so that are in the pool, then our target would be the 20 that are closest to getting certified. We feel confident that out of that 220, there are some that are just on the verge, or maybe 50 or 60. And so again, for us, a 50% success rate would be positive compared to what we've had in the past. And the option now is that people are going out on their own and taking Saturday classes, or just whenever they can get some practice training, and we're not seeing the positive results from that. So this was a result using title dollars, which are designed to help us attract and retain teachers. It's specifically allocated for this purpose to help us get teachers. We felt that this would be a good use of those dollars.
Well, this is my last question. Do we have a number of how many of our teachers move on their own from failure to passing annually? We don't,
but it's not successful. I think if we had to just take a look at it, if we had 220 220 limited service, how many of those are now certified? Probably maybe 20. So the percentage is the ones that are going at it on their own. The progress is not.
Does the district, for these 20, if say we have 20 close, does the district pay for them to take the praxis, or is it still out of their own pocket?
They will have to pay for that out of their own pocket.
So there's no money to pay for that, the cost of the test for these teachers, no money set aside.
The 20 that we're referring to, the reason why those 20 received the license is because of the new special non-renewable, non-traditional license. It's not because they took the praxis, it's because they have a BS degree or MA in the subject area in which they're trying to teach.
No, I'm thinking we were going to target 20 teachers who were close to passing the praxis.
They will pay for that test out of their pocket.
Out of their own pocket.
They'll take, because, if they have to take, they'll take for any of that out of their pocket. Okay. There's no money set aside for that.
For that, okay.
Only for the training and to get them to that process.
Right. And so we're looking at total cost for 20 teachers at $600 a teacher.
Correct.
That we're hoping we can find 20 who can do all this by August.
Absolutely.
So 20 teachers, $600 a teacher, hopefully getting a reasonable success rate by August. That's what you're seeking approval for, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
I just had one additional question. Of the 220 limited service teachers, do we know how many of them have taken the test and failed it? Do we have a number of how many teachers have taken the test and failed the test? And did we evaluate those teachers to see if they were interested in even getting their certification?
We had over 170 that said that they were interested.
Okay.
I think it's just, we have some teachers that have been in this district and have tried to get the licenses renewed, and they're just 1 point away, 2 points away, and it may just be test-taking strategies. And so, we're trying to give them every option that they may not have thought of on their own. And so this is what that attempt is. But we do have a number of teachers that are absolutely needing that support. And as I said, I think it's a great recruiting tool for us to retain these limited service teachers to say, now I have an opportunity that the district is going to help me and go ahead and get over, and then I will go ahead and stay with the contract.
And I know I said last question, but I'm sorry. And because we only received 2 RFPs, 2 responses to our RFP, and the first one was too costly. I mean, it's just we had this option. I know we put it out twice, but did we just go with this company, or just because they were?
Well, when we looked at the other company, they're out of state. Again, there was no real guarantee there. And they were committing to us to go out and finding people and bringing them to us, kind of working it a little bit differently from us. And so what we wanted to focus on is the people that we have that have committed to this district that are saying, I want to be here, we want the help. And so on top of the almost $500,600,000 cost, that spoke a lot. And then, quite honestly, somebody that we can hold accountable that's right here, that if this board says we need to see them tomorrow, they're here. That's a lot of it to me, because if we see something going wrong, I can pick up the phone and they're right down the street and say, come see me, come visit with me, tell me what's going on, tell me are we doing something? Have we picked the wrong kind of people? What have we done? So it's not necessarily just price, but that did play a huge part in it, I will have to admit.
And the contract is for 2 years.
It is. But again, we will evaluate, well, it's not really a contract for 2 years, it's 1 calendar year, and we will evaluate them after this initial 20 before we move forward. There's nothing here that we have to sign. We're looking at 1 calendar year, we're looking at the first 20. If it doesn't work, we will certainly bring it back to you and say, hey, this doesn't work.
And this is my last question. Do we know if the resources that this company is using compared to our previous companies, do we know if the resources are different, or they're just standard practice materials?
Well, I can speak to they actually did a presentation for our leadership team, and it was extremely impressive, the model that they employ. They actually have a lab where you can go into this lab, and they provide some very specific support. They have criteria that's in place to ensure that people are reporting for the training. They have some structures in place because, of course, their name is at stake with this process. But from the presentation that we saw, we were very impressed with their resume. Even though they're a young company, they came out to do this business because there was a need, and so that's why they stepped out there, and they've had some success in the districts that they've been working in, and we just feel like if 20 is a small group, and it behooves them to do a good job to continue the work, and so we just feel comfortable in this recommendation.
I would like to echo, while we certainly appreciate our administrative team making these vendor recommendations, it'd be very helpful if the vendors themselves were here, so we could hear from them and look in their face and get a sense of it.
I apologize. I did not think about it, and she asked me to be here, and I didn't recall that, but I will make sure that she's here in the future if you would like her, or She'll make
Well,
the
it's good
presentation.
to know that she made the presentation to the administrative leadership.
Yes, and the other company did as well.
Yeah, but, you know, it's new board. New board, neon lights, new board. Okay, board, what's your pleasure? I hear 20 at first. We're going to get the resumes of staff of the people who will be working with our folk. We'll want our usual monthly updates, and we want some kind of guarantee of success, which will be Ms. Miller and her team evaluating them and bringing the evaluation to us and say, we've done these 20, we'd like to do more.
Right.
Do I hear such a motion?
I would make a motion that we approve that contract and select an initial cohort of 20 to go through the process and evaluate whether or not we want to continue based on the success of that cohort.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve this RFP with an initial cohort of 20, receiving resumes of the staff, monthly updates, and we'll assess at that time. Is that accurate?
Yes.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Do I get to vote?
Yeah, you vote.
Because I usually.
I second no.
A second no, thank you.
Can I respond? I think that we need those resumes prior to approving. I mean, because once we get the resumes, then.
I agree. I was going to say no too. I just didn't realize other folk were going to say no. But I want to see it too. I want to know who's in our building. We don't, you know.
No, this is not. They're not.
Well,
coming.
who's working with our folk?
Okay.
Because we hear so much about needing support but not getting supported. The support they get is not what they need, and it's not delivered in a whole and healthy fashion. So it would help us to be able to speak to some of these concerns that people bring to us about the decisions we make.
Okay.
So.
Do we have a? Do we need
how
a
does that
legal
work?
question answered here? We just voted.
No, I voted no.
Oh, okay.
I just need more information.
I need 4 years.
So, but it sounds like what we may have wanted to do was to table it until we saw the resumes. Is that correct? That's what I heard you say.
That was mine. I don't know what.
Like I said, there isn't enough data for me. I'm drawing a line in terms of what I vote for, in terms of contractors that come before the board.
Now, and I was a total absolute no until I even heard that there are other credible people that we could get resumes on. So that gave me some hope that I might one day change my vote. But right now it's no. So now.
Too late to amend our our motion we just voted on.
What's Robert's rules? Can we amend?
If it's
table
3-3,
it?
the motion
3-3,
fails.
table.
If someone wants to make another
A new
motion.
So
then
that motion
another
failed. That's fine.
Right. Okay. Okay.
So I'll make a motion to table this discussion pending a review of the resumes.
And data. I mean, I don't think they're going to have any additional data. I think what we have is it.
Oh, there were no resumes in the RFP.
No, she was saying data, additional
I was
data.
asking, could we amend it based on the resumes and the data, the historical data?
I'll withdraw my motion.
I'm
Andrea, would you like to make, or Ms. Jones Davis, would you like to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion that we table the approval of the contract based on the resumes and the historical data of the company.
Of their success rate.
Of their success rate.
I was going to. So let me ask, what differently do you want from what we've provided? other than the resumes. I'm as far as the data is concerned.
Well, just to kind of piggyback off of what she said about the data that's included in the response, it's only for 2017. I know it's ones that you pulled out, but it's for 2017, and it's 50 individuals that are included in it. But if they have any other data to support
from their
previous
okay.
years.
Okay. I just wanted to know exactly what to ask for.
Are we also asking for them to
Present.
to the board?
I can have them here. They're local.
I'd love to have them present. It would help me.
That's not a problem. They're local. That's easy.
Are we requesting an accountability clause to be added to the contract? Just
Well, when they present, and we'll see what they have to say. I mean, I would like to see it there, but you might tell them that that's something that the board is really interested in. What can they guarantee? They're going to do 2 out of 20 or 19 out of 20, you know? I'm just saying, they ought to have an idea based on their data.
I just want to get a little clarity from the attorney because it wasn't included in the RFP. So I just want to make sure that I'm not stepping outside of that process.
Just ask them that we've asked them to come, and it would be helpful if they could provide that kind of information.
Okay, the information as opposed to the guarantee.
We're not going to tell you. We don't want, then that's fine. That'll be information for us.
Absolutely.
But that is something that's very important to us. If they want the contract, they ought to.
Oh, I don't think it would be a problem. I just wanted to make sure I was within the realm of the RFP.
Yeah. And we need to be mindful of that. The third or fourth time we've said it, when you submit RFPs, when you bring folk aboard, we need accountability clauses. New board, new rules. Third time we've said it.
Well, I think that drives home the need to update our policy.
Yeah.
Policy.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. Do I hear a second? I second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? One opposition.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Consent item 11, approval of staff personnel matters. Ms. Lyons.
To Dr. Murray, Dr. Hairston, the administration asks for the approval of staff personnel matters as listed in board material.
Thank you, Ms. Lyons. You distributed these personnel matters ahead, board. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve these personnel matters as presented by Ms. Lyons?
I so move.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, this approval has
Thank you.
passed. Item 11, other business. I have some other business that I would just like to distribute. And as I was talking to a board member earlier, sometimes we have these wonderful ideas, and no, I was talking to Dr. Merritt. We have wonderful ideas and we forget to press send. This was just a draft of some ideas that I had. Did anybody get my copy with red writing? Oh, no, here it is. Does everybody have a copy? Here, one more. Just some ideas, because this happens a lot when we get vendor proposals. We might give one to Ms. Miller or whoever vets these RFPs and vendor things. It's just questions that continue to come up that we would like to share with the administration when vendors come before us. Record of success, the staff will be working in our schools, how it fits in with the CAP accreditation standards. What are the plans for executing the work, the time schedule, data completion, anticipated results? you know, if not the names of central office staff, help us understand with whom they will be working in the schools, and the total cost to the district. And then I added an eighth one, and it would be helpful if someone making representing the vendor could be present to participate in these discussions. Now, this isn't in stone, this isn't a policy, it's just kind of a sense of recurring questions that the board continues to ask when vendors come before us. And it's just my thinking. It doesn't require anything, but I hope district leadership will take it into consideration. Is there other business?
Dr. Hairston, could I just provide an update on the Better Together Commission?
Oh, please do.
Thank you. As y'all know, the Better Together Commission was formed late last year through a collaborative between the governor, Governor Bryant, Mayor Lumumba, the Jackson Public School District, and the Kellogg Foundation. Since then, the Better Together Commission has been active in the community. And last December, conducted a series of listening tours in each of Jackson's 7 wards. These sessions were attended by parents, educators, administrators, students, and members of the community to share aspirations and concerns in the district. There has been some work underway. There's been a telephone opinion poll of Jackson residents to learn about perceptions of the school district. While there were common concerns, there were also many hopeful aspirations that were shared. A detailed overview of the findings from both the listening tour and the polling will be shared at the upcoming commission meeting, which is scheduled for Thursday, March 1st. I do not have a location yet, so please check the website for that. Future meetings will be held on the last Thursday of the month. For more information about the meetings, you can also get this on the website. The Commission has also selected Insight Education Group of Encino, California, to conduct a comprehensive student-centered study of the district. The study will take about 10 months and will be used to develop recommendations for strengthening the district. We look forward to working with this group and working with the administration and the board with Insight. Insight has more than 17 years of experience conducting similar work in places like Syracuse, New York. The Insight Group has also partnered with District Management Group, a Boston-based firm, which will focus on district levels issues of finance, personnel, and organizational efficiency. To complement this work, there will be a canvassing effort across the community where approximately 60,000 households will be engaged to hear firsthand feedback from residents. This includes voices of parents, teachers, administrators, students, business owners, and community members. Again, the Commission continues to work on ways to ensure families and members of the community can share their feedback, and we look forward to continuing to share these types of updates with the board.
Thank you, Dr. Sivat. I know we do, many of us hear from the community about what's going on, and because you are involved, you know that things are moving and things are coming down the pike, and we appreciate your sharing that with us. Item 13, consideration to hold an executive session. Do I hear a motion to consider holding an executive session? I have something. I know, but I have to ask one question that needs to be asked in executive session. It won't take long, hopefully.
So I will make the motion that we consider an executive session.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we consider holding an executive session. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, now we will consider to hold an executive session. Please, thank you all for coming tonight. We appreciate your support, but we need to chat as a board.